6 o'clock on Sunday, the 23rd of April. Today, the comedy world loses a true legend. Tributes are absolutely pouring in this morning for Barry Humphries, who's died at 89. Get out now. Staff scramble to evacuate the embassy in Khartoum as fighting in Sudan escalates.
Happy birthday, Prince Louis. The Prince and Princess of Wales release a special family photo to celebrate their youngest turning 5 years old. And on your marks, get set, go! Runners take to the streets for the 2023 London Marathon.
Very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, look, what else is there to talk about this morning than the lady who transformed the world? At least that's how she would have liked to have thought of it.
Yeah,
Dame Edna Everage. Do you know what? The world is just that little bit duller this morning after the death of the world's most glamorous housewife, Dame Edna Everage. Her alter ego, Barry Humphries, has passed away at 89.
Well, he had a huge fan base across the globe, winning our hearts with his mix of charm and razor-sharp wit.
Stephanie Tetchy is here with us now. And in glorious orange,
I
bright
know.
and breezy and cheerful, which actually is important, I think.
I thought I was gonna wear something dark, then I thought, actually, you know what, Barry Humphries was such a flamboyant character, so I thought, let me wear the orange in his respect and in his honour.
Isn't it interesting, though, that it's... I mean, Dame Edna was this incredible character who actually appealed to people across many continents, never mind countries.
There would never be another Dame Edna, just even the look, from the lilac hair, the cat-eye glasses, and he really brought that character to life, and it's something that he will forever be known for and loved for. But, you know, Stephen, he had a galaxy of characters which he was also known for. Sandy Stone, which was more the poignant, the monologues, but then also you have the Sir Les Patterson. And, you know, Sir Les Patterson and Dame Edna Everage, those were like the two characters which people always thought were an extension of Barry Humphrey himself. But I think a lot of people have been reflecting on his other work, which showed his variety as a performer, and he was truly one-of-a-kind entertainer. Before he passed away, he didn't want to be referred to as an icon, but I'm sorry, that is exactly what he was. You know, it was just on Friday we were sitting here where St Vincent Hospital in Sydney had come out and said, denied reports from the Daily Mail that he was unresponsive, but his spokesman came out yesterday before midday and said that he had passed away. But his family said he was completely himself until the very end, never losing his brilliant mind, his unique wit and generosity of spirit.
And we saw him so recently looking so well, didn't we? So this is all down to complications, wasn't it, with surgery?
Yeah, so he fell off. He was reaching for a book in February in his house, and then he fell and he hurt his hip. He went for surgery, but he was readmitted this week for complications following that surgery. For weeks, he's been brushing off any seriousness about his condition. And, you know, this has come as an utter shock to the comedy world, including people, Rob Brydon, who was he was with him only 3 days ago, and he said he was as ever making me laugh. His talent shone until the very end. And, you know, even though Barry spent so much time in the UK, he is an Australian export, and I think the Australians have been feeling it quite a bit. And the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said he was both gifted and a gift. May he rest in peace.
I just think it's phenomenal that someone... Because the nice thing about, I mean, both Les Patterson and Edna Everage was it was very close to the line, wasn't it? You look at all the clips of YouTube, and I wanted to talk to Parky today.
Yes.
But we couldn't get hold of him, sadly.
And
But, you know, some of those clips, and it's just, like, so close to the knuckle.
It is, and I'm so honoured and happy that he was allowed to do comedy the way he wanted to do comedy. I think now, increasingly in this world where so many comedians are having their material stripped away, I'm glad he was able to shine through. And to be honest, he was one of the only few comedians that got really close to the royal family.
Oh, yes.
And King Charles himself is paying tribute to him in a personal statement that he will be sending to the family. And, you know, he's had many moments with the royal family, including with the Queen's mother and the Queen at her Jubilee. He famously said, "Here's the Jubilee girl possums." So there's so many moments he's had, and it's just literally, we've lost one of our greats.
There's a great clip of him at a Royal Variety
in
performance.
2019.
Is that what it was? Getting into the royal box with
Camilla
Charles
and
Camilla. And it's just to see those two laughing because they had no idea what was going on.
They really liked him because of the way he could take the mick out of aristocracy in that sense, and being able to make fun of the titles like, you know, Dame Edna, Sir Les Patterson. So it's quite a joy that he brought to the world.
And the comedy world is grieving, isn't it? I mean, that's what's really struck me with the tributes, is he's just so respected by his peers.
Because he inspired so many people, including, you know, Jimmy Carr, Matt Lucas. They said they wouldn't be doing comedy if it wasn't for him. And I've seen so many pictures of people just looking at him with so much awe and so much inspiration. And to be honest, he was 89, but he was still going to continue working. He had planned to do more touring, so he wasn't even thinking of retiring. And as his family said, sadly, those shows will never come to light now.
I mean, it's funny though, isn't it? Where we wouldn't describe him as a drag queen.
No.
In that sense. But in effect, that's what Dame Edna was.
He wasn't. I think he was like a pioneer. And, you know, it's so sad because you think of Paul O'Grady and now you think of Barry Humphries, and you just see they both brought drag to stage and it was never controversial. It was like it became well-known love characters, and I find it's going to be quite hard to replicate such an icon.
Yeah, do you know what? As I said the other day, I saw Dame Edna and Sir Les, and it was at the Royal Albert Hall, I don't know, 10 or so years ago now.
Yeah.
And it was one of the few things I've been to where you just absolutely gut laugh.
Yeah.
Belly laugh to it, because it's just so outrageous.
And, you know, I just think to myself, in the comedy world now, is everything so watered down, and to have those kind of pioneers of comedy that we're losing, it's quite sad. But I've always said, as I've said over the past few weeks, when we do lose these people, their art does continue, and I think that will be the case with Barry Humphries.
He had a bit of a interesting private life. He was married. Was he married
four times. So he was quite the charmer. But you know, as with most performers, there's a bit of light and shade to their shade and darkness to their light. And you know, he did suffer from alcoholism at points, and you know, he did have so many marriages, and he had fractured relationships with some of his children. But he was surrounded by all of his family when he died, and he managed to mend one of the relationships with his daughter.
Yeah, so which is important, actually, isn't it? But you know, towards the end, managed to get all that back on track.
And to be honest, it sounds like I don't think he was ready to go. Like from Rob Brydon saying that he saw him 3 days ago and they were just laughing. So I think he very much thought he was going to come out of hospital and be ready to go back on tour.
And we had that false hope, didn't we? Saturday morning, we were told that he was stable. And
we've had this kind of situation before with celebrities where someone will give a tip to the paper and say, oh, you know, this has happened, which will force the family to deny it because they're not ready either to make such a statement, they want to do it in a correct way. Sometimes it's distasteful, but the papers are usually onto something when they get tips like this.
Yeah, but as you say, it's interesting. It's not just celebrating the work he's done, but it's the legacy he leaves behind with other performers.
The show will go on, but just without him, unfortunately.
Ah, Steph. Thank you very much
indeed. Thank you very much.
If you've got any thoughts, I mean, just nice memories. And I think that's a lovely thing about people like Edna. And do you know what? Dame Edna Everage did Desert Island Discs. You don't get something more stuffy and boring at times than Desert Island Discs. And yet Barry did it as Dame Edna and stayed in character throughout.
Oh, such a skill, isn't it?
Which is just... You know, I wish I'd been able to meet her in person.
Yeah. An interview, can you imagine that? Dame Edna, that would be
incredible. You wouldn't, if you see Edna being interviewed, you have to sit there and let her go.
She takes the lead, doesn't she? But if you've got any memories of Dame Edna, have you ever seen her live, seen Barry Humphries live and any of his characters, do share those memories with us this morning.
I'll tell you what's interesting. Chuck us that star, would you?
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting how the papers do it, right? Because that... 7. Where's camera 7? Oh, I don't know. There you go. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the Daily Star. They've used that picture of Edna, which I think is terrible because it just compared to the Observer. There you go. And now that's Edna. That's Edna, isn't it? I just love that one. Just looking crackers.
Do you know what, though? It was so interesting reading about Dame Edna this morning and all the tributes that apparently Barry Humphries created her. When he first created her, she was a very shy character based on his mother. And it just developed, it just developed into this such outlandish, elaborate character with a lilac wig. I mean, it's just, you know, as Stephanie said, we use the word icon a lot, don't we? But really was an icon.
It's funny,
Barry
we
Humphries.
can't say so much about Celeste Patterson, but if you want to look back and look at the some of the clips, I mean, you would. I don't know if you could do it on British television.
Well, you couldn't
nowadays.
now. You could say that with a lot of comedy, couldn't you?
So some of the stuff and the things he had stuffed down his trousers and all the rest of it is just, it's just unbelievable. It is so not woke, but it's so funny.
Well, that's refreshing, isn't it?
I love it.
Really, because you couldn't do it now, as you say. Let us know your thoughts on that this morning, your memories of Dame Edna and Barry Humphries. What a loss to the world of comedy and what a talent. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Nice to smile about him, though.
Yeah.
I think that's
And
a
what
nice
a legacy, right? Yeah, you're right. You are right.
Now, to more serious matters for you this morning, because British embassy staff are being told to leave Sudan as soon as possible as fighting in the country intensified. The PM chaired an emergency Cobra meeting yesterday over the crisis. More talks today.
But as airports and motorways become war zones, how dangerous could this evacuation be? Well, joining us now for more on this is political commentator Peter Spencer. Good morning to you, Peter. Really good to have you with us. Very serious situation in Sudan, especially in Khartoum. We know that Rishi Sunak chaired a Cobra meeting yesterday. More talks expected today. This is serious, isn't it, getting British people out of Khartoum?
It most certainly is, and we note that President Biden has taken the same basic position as the Brits, which is to get people out as soon as. And as you rightly say, of course, Rishi Sunak had to chair a Cobra meeting yesterday. And looking at it from his point of view, you think, look, you got this, a couple of generals have fallen out in a faraway country of which we know little. And suddenly he's got to switch his concentration away from all the other things that he's got on his plate, like the local elections, like losing his deputy and so on, and focus on that. I mean, I'm reminded of something that Harold Wilson once said when Harold Macmillan once said when asked if anything troubled him in politics. He said, "Well, events, dear boy, just events." That's what this is.
Why has it warranted something like a Cobra meeting, Peter? I mean, obviously we've got diplomatic staff over there, and there will be civilians over there, but presumably not that many.
Just one is enough, isn't it? I mean, the point is you have an intensely volatile situation there. You've got a couple of generals who've fallen out spectacularly, chucking bombs and things around. And so anything could happen at any point. That's part of the problem, is the fact that there's no way of knowing which way this is going to go. And until just a few days ago, no one really knew there was going to be a problem anyway. And so, of course, they're playing safe, and of course, they have no choice but to do so. I mean, I'm just reminded, just as sort of parenthetically, I just mentioned the fact that it's probably rather an uncomfortable reminder for Dominic Raab of when we had the sudden evacuation from Afghanistan, which didn't, I have to say, go particularly well. Where was Dominic Raab at the time as Foreign Secretary? He was on holiday.
Well, yes, good point, Peter. I mean, we do know that James Cleverly has cut short his Pacific tour that he's on right now in order to come back in and be in these meetings. But it is going to be complicated, isn't it? I mean, we touched at the top there about airports and roads becoming war zones. We're seeing pictures now of bombs going off. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to evacuate people, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's one reason why they had to have a Cobra meeting, to get all the heads together to work it out, because, we're a very, very long way away. We've got British nationals, embassy, but also there's quite a significant number of British nationals living out there in different parts of the country. If it does erupt into full-scale civil war, how on earth do you get them out? That's what they had to think about, and they've got to think about jolly pretty damn quick.
You mentioned Dominic Raab. Do you think this row is over for the Conservative Party? I mean, do you think it's been nipped in the bud in time?
Well, I think Rishi Sunak has certainly done his best to do so. There was that report from a top lawyer in which he was found not guilty of 6 of the charges, but guilty of the other 2 of intimidating and bullying staff. And Number 10 has not confirmed that he was actually sacked. But generally speaking, when ministers resign, what they actually mean is they've got the heave-ho. And you can picture the telephone conversation that the 2 of them had, with Rishi Sunak saying to Dominic Raab, look, there's a bit of a problem, Dom. I think you're going to have to slip away. We'll get you back as soon as we can, but I think you're going to have to go now. And Dominic Raab very clearly spitting nails about the thing and say, if I go, it's in anger, not in sorrow. Hence all the stuff that he was first of all, as the papers put it, he came out swinging, which is actually says it all. And then you can just picture this karate expert with the veins in his forehead throbbing, absolutely hopping mad. And I note that today he's done a piece for the Mail on Sunday, in which he's still steaming, but he's not actually spitting nails anymore. I mean, obviously, from his point of view, when he stops to think about it for half an hour, a second, they think, look, the sooner I shut up, the sooner I'm going to get back into office, because we've got the headlines rumbling along. And that's one reason why Sunak said, look, you've got to go, man, because we've got to close this story down. And so I think that what he'll do is, I think he will now he will button his lip a little bit. And as a consequence, at the earliest possible moment, I'm quite convinced that Sunak will want him back in office.
Oh, OK, that's very interesting. Where do you think this leaves the relationship between civil servants and ministers? Because there was a war of words yesterday, wasn't there, with Dominic Raab suggesting that they were blocking policy. Civil servants said that was a conspiracy theory. And now we've got Lord Maud writing in the Observer, I should say, suggesting that there needs to be a new robust culture in Whitehall, suggesting that ministers should be able to choose their own staff. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, that's sort of, I'm reminded for a start of when we talked about that, you were talking about Dame Edna Everage and funny stuff from yesteryear. I'm reminded of Yes Minister and Sir Humphrey, and the tension there is bound to be between a politician who's got a brilliant wheeze and a civil servant who's got to actually put it into practice. Say, look, Minister, and I mean, if you trace back, I mean, you go back to, for example, Margaret Thatcher's, her chief sort of spokesperson was Bernard Ingham, who was overtly political. And then when John Major came in, he made Gus O'Donnell his spokesperson, who went on to become the head of the civil service. He was very, very much a neutral figure. Incidentally, because his initials were God, they used to refer to him as God, as it happens. But I mean, all this stuff about how the civil service have got their own agenda, I think that's a very overblown thing. Of course, it is part of their job to turn around to politicians and say, look, if you do this, this will happen. And in the case that has been made much of is how the civil service had an issue with Brexit. Well, they would have pointed out, look, there's liable to be damage to the economy. Hey-ho, there has been damage to the economy, and we now have opinion polls which show a great deal of buyer's remorse, which clearly suggests that if there were to be a Brexit referendum today, we would remain in the European Union. So who's right, who's wrong, take your pick.
OK, Peter, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
And
I'm sure
you
you'll have a view on all of that. GB News at gbnews.uk. Been getting in with your thoughts already. Happy St George's Day, say Joe and Brenda, which of course it is. Same from Arthur this morning, just to wish you both a happy St George's Day. When was St George about? It was something like 303 AD.
Oh, you're across it.
Something that's a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Long time ago. Here's actually to say happy. Oh, my computer's a bit frozen. Here we go, and I've written this in for later on. But one of the ways to do a St George's Day greeting is to say, let us celebrate an inspiring Roman soldier who stood firm in his belief in Christianity on the occasion of St George's Day. Oh. It's quite a Victorian way of sort of saying it. Or you could say St George is the epitome of motivation, as he is the one who lost his head for refusing to ditch his beliefs in Christianity. It's a bit of a long-winded way of saying Happy St George's Day, but there you go, if you want to be traditional.
He's a man who stuck to his guns, wasn't he? So happy St George's Day to you all. What are you doing? If you're celebrating at all today, do let us know. We've got some flags in the newsroom, don't we? We've just had those out. So do let us know if you've got your flags out in the house or hanging out the window. Do let us know. Send in some pictures. That's always nice, isn't it? Let us know if you're marking the day at all.
Yeah, whether Ed in Virginia is marking the day, I don't know. What can you do in Virginia about this? It might upset your neighbours, Ed.
Yeah.
But Ed is staying up late to welcome the new day with us too and see the latest news from his former home. Morning to you, Ed, or evening.
Or good night. Go to bed, Ed.
Yeah. Well, you don't have go to bed in about 3 hours.
Well, go to bed when you like, but thank you for staying up to watch us. And, bringing you the very sad news about Dame Edna's passing today. Died yesterday in Australia. So do let us know your memories of Dame Edna, Barry Humphries.
Happy thoughts.
If you've ever seen Dame Edna or Barry Humphries live, let us know those happy memories. It'd be really nice to share those today. GBNews at gbnews.uk.
Now, one thing Ed in Virginia won't have to put up with is the government's emergency alert. It's due in T-minus 9 hours, so are you ready?
This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
.23, good morning to you. This is breakfast. We've had a lovely picture sent through from, I found your name.
I think it was Jill.
Jill Beaton. And I've lost it now on here. But it's a picture of you.
It is.
Looking elegant.
Wow.
Pencil drawing.
It's
You're a talented bunch.
You are a talented bunch. Somebody's clearly just done a quick sketch.
Got the outfit right and everything.
Got my outfit right and everything.
Fabulous.
And the hair. So we'll try and get that up for you.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do that for you.
Yeah, creative bunch.
Yes.
It's very early to be doing a
it?
quick sketch.
Yeah. No one, not any of me. There you go, probably just as well. But now, if, like me, you're going to be having an afternoon nap at 3 o'clock this afternoon,
I'll be doing the same.
Prepare to be woken up brutally. The government is going to send an alert to all mobile phone users today.
Yes, it's to test the system, which is intended to warn us of life-threatening events such as floods or wildfires.
Well, our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, has the lowdown.
Last year's Storm Eunice. It battered Wales, the west of England, and this guy.
Tom, I can tell you, in the last few minutes, it has strengthened so significantly that if I just show you, up over here, we were standing up there just now, we couldn't stand up. We were literally getting blown around.
Rare but extreme weather like this, including fires and floods, are why the government says we need an emergency alert system.
Well, this is another tool in the toolkit in order to help the government respond to emergencies and help protect people's lives. And it's very similar to what we have in Japan, United States and elsewhere.
At 3 p.m. today, you'll get something like this on your phone, a test for the new alert system. It'll also have a loud siren-like sound or vibration lasting for about 10 seconds. In Tonga, during last year's tsunami, this is how their emergency alert system sounded. In fact, quite a few countries have an emergency alert system, including Australia, Canada, and Italy. Now, it's the UK's turn.
We won't get any information about people's personal phones. This is a broadcast signal that goes to every mobile phone. The government doesn't find out anything about your phone.
As long as your phone has a 4G or 5G signal, and if it's an iPhone running iOS software 14.5, or for Android phones, Android 11 software or later, you'll get the text and the noise even if it's on silent.
If you're living with an abusive partner, this could put you at risk.
For survivors of domestic violence, however, who rely on secret phones, charities like Refuge have produced this video explaining how to turn off the alert.
These alerts will make a noise even if that phone's on silent, so we really want all survivors to know they've got a phone and the discovery of that phone would put them at risk. They can turn off these alerts.
The AA have also recommended drivers turn off the alert if they're behind the wheel at 3 p.m. But for the rest of us, the government recommends setting your phone to receive the alerts, which, it says, many of us may not receive for months or even years.
So these are extreme weather conditions. There is a danger to life, and only idiotic reporters are going to be out in this kind of weather.
Paul Hawkins, GB News.
Well,
Yeah.
you're going to have a view on that, aren't you?
Yeah, do you know what? There's so many people, and here in the office as well, miserable bunch, saying, oh, it's terrible, what an awful thing, I'd have to turn it all off. Don't we want a warning if something terrible is coming? You know, really, really bad weather or a terrorist attack or something. Wouldn't you want to know? I sort of think the people who moan the loudest about this are the people who would then complain, saying, why didn't the government tell us? It's just, you know...
No, it doesn't,
I don't know.
It doesn't bother me either. I'll just switch it off when it will wake me up at 3 p.m.
It'll
That
go
will
off,
be the
turn it
most
off again.
annoying thing, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But let us know what you make of that, because I know lots of you are going to have opinions on this national emergency alarm. Let us know, gbviews at gbnews.uk. We've got a lovely memory of Barry Humphreys here from Frankie, who says, Dame Edna, you've seen them live 3 times, once in Panto, simply amazing. Last year I saw his one-person show, The Man Behind the Mask. It was the man himself, literally unmasked, and he was a legend. Even without the famous characters, he had us all spellbound. That's really, really lovely memory. Thank you, Frankie, for sharing that.
Yeah, Mick's been in touch as well to say it's too right that celebs wouldn't be allowed on TV these days, along with 99% of all great comedy. All down to the woke brigade, he says. Happy St George's Day. That's from Mick in Birmingham. I do think it is right that Les would have struggled to get on telly these days.
Dame Edna would struggle to get on.
No,
telly.
Dame Ellie's all right.
Well,
Dame Ellie.
the drag queen controversy at the moment is quite.
But it's interesting because she was never seen as a drag queen.
No.
Is that because he was
So
straight?
good. Or so good. I don't know.
That's straight. I don't know. Interesting. Malcolm, hi Malcolm, says, you haven't shown a single clip of Dame Edna. It's all to do with rights.
Got to be very careful.
You can't just, because a lot of it's like off the BBC or whatever, and you can't just use it. There's a great clip I wanted to show, but I just don't think we've got the rights to it.
It's the Royal Variety performance.
The Royal
isn't
Variety,
it?
well, it just makes me howl every time. So funny.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've got the rights to show it.
But what a skill to make the royal family laugh out loud. It's so rare you would see that from the Queen, the late Queen, I should say. and King Charles. There's that lovely clip of King Charles and now Queen Consort Camilla.
Just laughing.
Barely laughing.
Wondering what the hell is going on here. I mean, that's the nice thing. He just didn't know what was coming.
What was coming.
Anyway, love it, and I'm glad those tributes are being paid.
Yeah.
That's a really great thing. Up next for you, a sneaky peek at all the stories making the Sunday papers.
This is GB News. Say it together.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Oh, and that picture. We found that picture for you that was emailed through.
Oh,
of Ellie. Here we go.
Here it is. Oh, there I am.
There you go. There you go. That's from Jill.
She's got the hair exactly right. That's how I wear it, down one shoulder.
She's got the mugs right.
She's got the mugs right. And the neckline on this dress. It's very
Fabulous.
good. Apparently I look like a Canadian comedian, I'm being told in my ear. I'd love to know who that
Oh,
is.
yes, Catherine Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
There
take
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
Well done.
Even the little flower pot there, very nice. Good
Yeah.
attention to detail. You can do Stephen next.
Yeah, there you go. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, huge tributes to Barry Humphries. No surprise that face is all over the papers this morning. Let's have a look at the Star for you. I mean, I actually think this is the worst picture of the lot because it looks like a posed picture, if you know what I mean.
Great headline, though.
Good night, possums. Yeah. It's hard to believe these people have gone. That's a better picture.
That's a better picture. This is The Observer. Yeah, you like that one, don't you? If you were picking pictures, you'd choose that one.
I would choose that one, yeah.
It also touches on the Raab scandal as well and the Tory plan to politicise the civil service. This is Lord Maud, who's written in The Observer, basically saying there needs to be a new robust culture in Whitehall with ministers maybe choosing their own civil servants.
Do you know all that hoo-ha over Boris Johnson and not being able to afford to redecorate number 10 or the flat in number 11 or whichever one he was staying with? He's not short on money or friends with money. He's been, according to this is on the Sunday Mirror this morning, he's been staying at a £4,000 a night villa, but apparently it belongs to his cousin, who is some sort of tycoon.
Oh.
Something like that. I mean, it all gets very... But anyway, it's his 4th holiday in 10 months.
He does get some great holidays.
He does get some great holidays. I mean, you sort of would expect it in a way, but, you know, £4,000 a night.
I think he's got the right sort of friends, though, hasn't he?
Must do.
With villas.
But why is he not paying for anything himself? Because didn't he earn about £5 million in the 6 months after he stopped being
He's earning a lot being a talker and a speaker, afternoon speaker, isn't he? Clearly it's not going in the holiday fund. The friends are paying for that.
Yeah.
This is the Mail. Eco-warriors could cause injury or death at the King's coronation. Well, we hope not.
No.
But that's the warning on the front page of the Mail.
Spook the horses with rape alarms. Well, those are very, very well-trained horses with excellent riders.
Yeah.
I would say try your best, but no, you know,
don't try.
But actually, I tell you what, if you are someone who is of the ilk to think, oh, I'd like to try and disrupt it, bear in mind that is all lined with people with guns that are loaded, and that if they think you pose a threat to the king or the royal family, you will be shot. I mean, do not mess about with these people. They're soldiers. Do not mess about. I mean, it's just crazy if you think you're going to fool about with that sort of thing.
Security is so high at these events, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Times leads with a very distressing story of an MI6 spy sent to a jihadist camp. He killed his own child after a report warned he was emotionally unstable. Really distressing report, that one.
Very worrying. Let's look at that in a bit more detail. Anyway, journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell and the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, are both here with us this morning. Good to see you.
Morning.
Emma, let's kick off with the Sunday Telegraph, should we? Because the Home Secretary says she's not bothered what the judges say. She's going to get on and deport migrants.
So this is not new today, it's just new that she's commented on it. There was an amendment that the government accepted to their legislation going through the Commons at the moment, which will say that in certain circumstances the British government has the right to overrule, to issue a Section 39 order, I think it is, or to overrule a Section 39 order, which is where the European judges have said that the deportation of migrants specifically to Rwanda is not blanketly illegal, but is illegal in certain cases and would need to have higher thresholds in certain cases, and that's what stopped the deportations last time.
Yeah.
It's almost certainly going to get through the Commons. The government has accepted the amendment. Where they may run into trouble is in the Lords, where there are people with a lot of law lords, a lot of Conservative peers who are on the more liberal wing, who will find this, would be very queasy about the idea of instituting into law overruling judges.
Except, you said, we're talking about the ECHR, aren't we? European Court of Human Rights, which, according to David Mellor on Friday, and bear in mind he's a QC, or was a QC, he says actually there is the ECHR is not a court and just, actually holds no power.
Well, there's the ECJ, which is the European Court of Justice, and the ECHR, which is the European Human Rights Commission.
But it's
those are two different separate things.
Yeah, but it's the ECHR that's blocked this, isn't it? Not the ECJ?
The ECJ would be the legislative arm that oversees what the ECHR implements. So a judge has blocked it. An international judge has blocked it. That's what they're saying they want to overrule.
That just heightens the call for us to leave the ECJ, doesn't it?
It will, from the people who wish to do so, yes. The problem with all of these things is you will always find a case to support your argument, and you will always find a case to support the argument against. And we will go back and forward on these things. If we wish to deport migrants to Rwanda, there are questions about how many migrants will be able to deport. I have a question which I don't know the answer to, but I haven't heard anyone discussing in this, which is what do we do if Rwanda destabilises, which is not that unlikely?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it's not that unlikely. Rwanda has been a success story, but there are many surrounding countries which are descending into civil war. There are issues in Rwanda where the government is less stable than it was a year ago. Have we put in any sort of measures to say, well, hang on, once Rwanda reaches this point, we will not deport people there because it is not a safe third country anymore? These are questions that we do need to ask, whether or not you agree with the policy. So I think we need to be, rather than simply saying yes, no, deportations to Rwanda, I obviously, very liberal, have my own view on that. But what I would like to see is those people who are in favour of it or wish to scrutinise it, really scrutinising it properly and really making sure that it's a strong and defensible policy in their view.
But I think that's a good argument for saying we should have these arguments out in our own legislature, that you shouldn't have ECHR judges being able to issue these, they call them pyjama injunctions, you know, middle of the night.
Well, they don't call them that. Tory MPs call them that, but yeah.
Well, of course, that would be a very strange thing for them to do, but I think that's the problem is I don't support the Rwanda policy. I think it is ungenerous and so on. The issue of the boat crossings needs to be stopped, but I'd rather it was stopped in a more humane fashion. But at the same time, that's almost a separate question now. The question is, do our elected representatives, are they able to set migration policy in line with what they believe the people who voted for them want? And I think if we're in a situation where that's being outsourced or blocked or interfered with by a foreign court, effectively, that's a big problem. And I think it's served to inflame the migration issue for so many years because of the fact that people felt that regardless of who they voted into government, regardless of what pledges they made, because of membership of the EU, but also member of the ECHR, the Tories always could just blame them and say there's reasons we can't do this. So I think actually being able to properly take back control, to coin a phrase, of policy allows us to actually have an argument about it and set out what we want to do, and that's what I think is the key thing.
OK. You'll have a view on that at home. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tom, let's stay with you, shall we, on the Mail. And we just touched on this. Coronation disruption. There's warnings, isn't there, in the Mail?
Yes, so there's concerns that there are groups of extremists, as the Mail has it here, who have been threatening to take rape alarms to the coronation, as you've already been discussing, throwing them at the horses in an attempt to disrupt the procession. As many people have pointed out, this could lead to them bolting. It could lead to both the riders but also people in the crowd potentially being put at threat. It's not entirely clear what group and of what political persuasion the police fear here. There's mention in the piece in general about both Republican and environmentalist groups, but at the same time it doesn't pin it on them specifically, but it just speaks to, I guess, the security concerns which are going to surround any kind of big high-profile event like this. So it's not even entirely clear if this is ones with a kind of specifically Republican agenda or if it's just people who want to go and
cause trouble.
Cause trouble, exactly, but concerns there about what...
Why would you want to distress the horses? Why would you want to, say, put civilians at risk in that sense, but also members of our armed forces who are doing their job who could potentially be hurt by this? Why would you want to do that?
I mean, it seems like a way to, whatever cause might be attached to it, to completely push people in the other direction. You know, it's, I just think it's people who are just going to cause trouble for the sake of it.
And as I say, I think you stand a very good chance of being shot. I know that sounds very dramatic.
They're seen throwing something.
But yeah, if you throwing something into the parade, you're going to get shot. They're not going to mess about.
No.
It's your own fault. I wouldn't have any sympathy. I wouldn't.
Well, we saw the same sort of warnings, didn't we, with the Grand National, and thankfully the police were totally across those warnings and they acted very, very quickly. There were protesters, but they were very quickly rounded up, and hopefully we see the same sort of thing. But there are warnings and they are stark.
I mean, I think we do need to differentiate between the right to protest. There is and I think that is perfectly fair. And
how you do it.
But it is absolutely how you do it. And I do, I just wonder what anybody who is trying to influence the British public, which is ultimately what any stunt protest is about, is trying to raise the profile of an issue and influence the public, thinks that the British public are famously animal-loving. If you mess around with horses, I'm not talking about the Grand National where they felt they were doing that for the sake of the horses, but here, it just doesn't feel to me like the kind of stunt that will be helpful. Having said that, there's not an awful lot of there in the story. It's this might happen. A senior source speculates that. We don't know which groups. So it might just be that...
I'll tell you what, these aren't people with an agenda, though, like a political agenda or an environmental agenda, is it? If you're going to do that, these are people who just want to cause trouble. And you do get those in these protest groups.
You get a certain amount of people who are drawn to troublemaking, but there are people in these groups who are incredibly passionate about their causes and really believe in it. And the problem comes with anything. When you're deeply, deeply passionate, you can convince yourself that any action is the right action. Something must be done is the worst phrase in politics. But because it always means that you can justify whatever that something is, whether it's actually deeply unhelpful to your cause.
Yeah, well, let's hope this never happens. Imagine, would the Prime Minister be on holiday, the former Prime Minister, I should say, be on holiday for all this? He's swanning off a lot, isn't he, Boris Johnson, according to the Sunday
Is he ever
Mirror?
not on holiday, is my question. And I know I'm not being funny, but I'm saving up desperately to try and maybe get a weekend in the Greek islands at some point this year. Could anyone out there, if you're watching and have a £4,000 a night villa, I'm available. I will.
Anytime you like.
Anytime you like. I will take it on the off season, absolutely. But it just. I mean, he's perfectly entitled to do it, but I think we're perfectly entitled to think it's a little stinky.
Well, also, shouldn't he be doing his job?
He also should be doing his job.
Yeah,
Look, 4 holidays in 10 months, that is really not someone doing their full-time job.
No, but it's clearly someone who doesn't care about getting re-elected at the next election, isn't it? I know everyone's saying, oh, he's desperate to be Prime Minister again. He's clearly not bothered. He's on a pretty tight wicket as it is in his constituency. He's not going to get re-elected doing this.
Well, not in Uxbridge.
No.
You may have eyes, I swear.
And he claims that he's going to stick it out and slug it out in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, but as you say, many are less convinced by that, not least because it was a quite close call last time around, at least for that constituency. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that whenever he's on holiday, it seems like someone else pays for it. Even his current living accommodation, he's got a couple of houses that he's basically using at the...
Including one, I believe, near
favour of
Henley.
other people. There you go.
Or he's been sent house hunting.
It's hard to see what would motivate him to stay in politics. He's making so much money on the speaking circuit, isn't he? And he's got friends in high places that can put him up on nice holidays.
I think with Boris Johnson,
to try again, though.
He's never happy unless he's unhappy. So if he's at the top of politics, he's not earning enough money. If he's earning all the money, he's not at the top of politics. And so I think he's one of those people who's motivated by what he doesn't currently have.
Maybe. I just sort of think... do you know, I couldn't live a life where everything I do is paid for by other people.
Oh, really?
No, I mean,
No,
I joke
couldn't.
about it, but I would feel
really
so
couldn't.
obligated. It's just weird to me. And I can't imagine being a person who would expect that kind of thing.
No.
And as you were saying, Stephen, as well, in terms of the election in his own constituency, if he does indeed stand, there's nothing more toxic in quite a tight local race than he doesn't really care about the constituency, is never there and so on. So it does make you think, is he actually serious about it?
Tom, let's have a look at the Sunday People now, about the story about knife crime.
Yes, so this is a story in the Sunday People. They sent one of their reporters to essentially pose as a teenager on the internet to try and procure zombie knives, which are these big, almost machete-style knives and so on, actually kind of talking back and forth with someone who's selling it to them, saying, oh, it cuts through things like butter and so on, kind of bragging.
Oh, butter?
Butter,
it's not a butter knife, that.
Just essentially kind of bragging about how sharp and so on it is and talking about you can deliver it, and concerns about the fact of how easy it would be for a young person, not only just to procure a knife, but a particularly large and dangerous one. These are ones that you have seen cases of police taking them off young teens in particular. And obviously the context for this is the fact that it's ONS statistics here, that knife killings in England and Wales were the highest for 76 years in 21, 22, and that you're seeing kids, in some of these stories, not even necessarily into proper mid-teens before they're finding themselves caught up in this. So growing clamour to say, what is the point of selling these particular knives? They have no real practical application. It seems like they're just very big, very scary, and as this bloke selling them likes to brag, very sharp. So calls to clamp down on them.
Clamp down, but they need... I mean, it's a pretty serious offence to be caught with a knife. They need to start... But they need to start tougher sanctions on that, don't they? It's like if you're caught with a firearm, is it 5 years you get for you're just having a firearm? Is it?
I'm not sure, but it's certainly. I mean,
it's a good stretch inside, and it needs to be the same. Because how on earth do you get the message through to these young people that you do not carry knives?
Yeah, no, it is extraordinary. I was lucky enough to be spending some of my time this week around the district of Epping. And I was walking through this beautiful, picturesque village, and outside of the police station in this beautiful was a knife amnesty bin.
Yeah.
And I just thought, gosh, what a signal of the modern times that we live in. That's so not what you'd expect in this beautiful, picturesque place. And it made me think about the fact that a lot of this is coming in and out of London to the home counties now. The county line stuff, and we do need to crack down. And I think the problem is, we need to crack down on kids carrying knives and trying to change that culture. But we also need to go much higher than that, because there's a reason those kids are carrying the knives. There's a reason. We get to the sellers, get to the people running the gangs. That's how you really crack down on this.
I mean, the reality is that zombie knives, it's terrifying that they're being advertised on TikTok, but the reality is the kitchen knife would do the same thing, wouldn't it? It's not about the accessibility, it is about the culture and why kids are carrying them in the first place. Emma, we need to talk about Barry Humphries, don't we? Pictures all over the papers this morning. But we're looking at the Star in particular and the tributes to Barry Humphries and Dame Edna.
Absolutely. I mean, Dame Edna was just my whole life been this absolute icon. I was talking in the green when I was saying how much I absolutely loved the audience with shows that Dame Edna did in the 80s. Just so brilliant. I would like to mention something that nobody else will mention, because there was a funny little sequel to the Rocky Horror Show, which is one of my favourite films ever, called Shock Treatment. And Barry Humphries does this incredible turn as Bert Stick, who's kind of the host of this bizarre TV channel. Barry Humphries was so versatile. You know, you had Dame Edna, but you also had Les Patterson. And for those of us who love Shock Treatment, you had Bert Stick. Just all these completely different characters, but every single one of them giving such joy. And he never lost that real sense of mischief and humour. He was brilliant on the chat show circuit. We were giggling again about the time when he said all exactly the right phrases about Philip Schofield's coming out, but to Dermot O'Leary.
Perfect, because it's wicked. It's wicked. That is a great clip. It is a great clip. We've got to leave it there, Emma. Tom, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on, though.
Thank you.
Now, do you ever feel like you're getting ripped off by your energy company? Oh, I bet you do. One business, though, knows that feeling more than anyone.
Yes, when Roz Colt Hart opened a new hairdressing studio, she thought that customer service would be her biggest concern. That was until she received an extortionate energy bill that could have actually put her out of business.
And she joins us this morning. Morning, Roz. What happened?
Good morning.
What happened, Roz?
Basically, what happened was last year I was moving business premises and I was literally just moving 7 doors down the street. So I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And I thought, in terms of energy suppliers, I've been with Opus for 3.5 years. I'd like to stay loyal to them, and it'll probably be easier for a simple transition just to get them to move with me. I could not have been any more wrong, honestly.
So what did your bill say when you opened it?
So there was 2 different bills. Basically, the first bill that I had was from SSE, which had been the previous supplier of my new premises. They sent me a bill for 10 days that was £1,230. And I knew that there was no way that that could actually be right, because I had one handyman with a battery-operated drill in there, in daylight, in summer. There was no heating. I just thought, oh, for goodness sake. But that was only the beginning of the story.
So then what else? You had a second bill as well.
So basically, that was with SSE. So I called them to try and get that fixed, and that took a while. But round the corner, what happened was basically another bill came in from Opus, which was for 4.5, 5 months, and that was for £6,340. And so I had 2 different companies that I was basically dealing with, one for 1,243 or whatever it was, the other one for 6,400, and they were both pointing fingers at each other, and I was basically the piggy in the middle, just trying to get it sorted out. And time just kept going on and on and on. The situation wasn't getting fixed. I started getting final demands, and bearing in mind, at the same time as this, I basically sublet properties to people that are in hair and beauty. And I was dealing with new tenants, and I was dealing with refurbishments. And I think the point that gets missed a lot with companies like Opus or SSE is that you do understand as a consumer, whether you're moving house or business premises, you understand as a consumer that there will be mistakes, but it's the amount of time and energy that it actually takes to get those mistakes fixed. I mean, it was 5 months for me, and in the meantime, I was getting final demands from 2 companies. It was ridiculous.
So after you finally picked yourself up off the floor and emptied a few bottles of wine, in that 5-month period, what did you manage to get the bills down to from those huge amounts?
So basically, from the 1,230, I got that one down to £23. So that's pretty significant, obviously. And then I'm still kind of fighting that one because SSE told me that it was coming down to £23. And then lo and behold, I have an unpaid legal action notice sitting in front of me for £175, which I knew nothing about, which the Times have kindly told me has now been resolved. So that one, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, will be fixed. With Opus, the one that was 6,300, whatever, that came down to £255.
Oh, I mean, Roz, very, very briefly, there is an important message here, isn't there, to people watching and listening, which is check your bills and don't be afraid to question them.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, I'd like to, learn something. As frustrated and as crazy as I was feeling at the time, I do like to learn something. And what I would say to people for lessons learned is whether you're leaving business or a home premises, make sure that you take a photograph of your meter reading when you leave the old premises. Make sure you take a photograph of the meter reading when you move to the new premises, and make sure that you submit it to them. I was submitting my meter readings on a regular basis. I'd get an email from Opus saying, we're going to send you a new bill, submit your meter reading here. So I text it back to them. Then I would go online, I would put it on their website, and I would still get nonsense back from them. And then to make things even worse, when I called them to fix it, would you believe that the number they had on their website was a premium rate number, and I got charged £70 for the phone call?
Oh, it's just ridiculous. But I'm glad you fought your corner.
Yeah.
Roz, really good to see you this morning. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Awful, isn't it?
Wow.
Awful. Now, up next, the fallout from Raab's resignation rumbles on. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Relatively unsettled second half of the weekend for pretty much all areas of the UK, all thanks to low pressure being sat right across the UK. That's bringing showers and longer spells of rain to various locations. The first one will start pushing its way into southern areas of England and move into southeastern areas throughout this morning, so it could provide quite a wet London Marathon if you are running here. Some sunnier spells developing elsewhere, but that will allow some showers to pop off, particularly for Wales, central northern areas of England. One or two of those could be quite sharp with the odd rumble of thunder. Further rain pushing into northeast Scotland. That will fall as a wintry mixture over the higher ground areas as we've seen cold air begin to dig in from the Arctic. So really quite cold compared to recent days, particularly around coastal Scotland, where we'll see gales developing, and it will feel quite bitter if you're exposed to that. Elsewhere, the showers will tend to ease their way off as we head throughout this evening and overnight. That will allow a few clearer intervals to develop and the temperatures to drop off ever so slightly down into low single figures. But a patchy frost is possible across some areas of Scotland and slightly further south as well. But we do have further rain pushing from Northern Ireland into Wales and southern England as we head into Monday morning. So quite a damp start to the new working week here, and that will continue to progress its way eastwards, so turning quite cloudy even for the Midlands and into the southeast for the afternoon. Some sunnier spells developing for Northern Ireland, Scotland and into northern areas of England for the afternoon, but again a stream of showers still pushing in across the north, those now falling even to sleet at lower levels and really quite cold for the time of year, about 5 degrees below average. We'll continue to see some showers as we head into Monday evening, but the ridge of high pressure wants to build its way in for Tuesday and help settle things down slightly, but those temperatures are going to remain well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Sunday the 23rd of April. Today, the comedy world loses a true legend. Tributes absolutely pour in for Barry Humphries, who's died at 89. Get out now. Staff scramble to evacuate the embassy in Khartoum as fighting in Sudan escalates.
Happy birthday, Prince Louis. The Prince and Princess of Wales released a special family photo to celebrate their youngest turning 5 years old. And on your marks, get set, go! Runners take to the streets for the 2023 London Marathon.
Very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Happy St George's Day to you.
St George's Day.
Bit of irony for Tom this morning. Says, as a Scot, my English wife managed to have our son prematurely on St George's Day. Oh dear. But we're still happily married 58 years later. So I was born on St David's Day.
Were you?
And I'm obviously not Welsh.
But you weren't called David?
No.
I always think it's tempting, isn't it? Tom, is your son called George? Let us know.
Actually, yeah.
I think it would be tempting if you're born on a particular day. Gary in Evesham says it's also the first day of the Vale of Evesham Asparagus Festival. Come and celebrate asparagus in its birthplace.
Was that where it's from? Evesham?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think this is just a similar... Well, it's just a different festival that's fallen on today, which is the Asparagus Festival.
Yeah, but he said celebrate asparagus in its birthplace. Is that where asparagus was first ever grown?
Must be. Gary, tell us more. We're very intrigued.
I like a bit of asparagus.
So do I, in the mornings.
Asparagus soup.
See, I like asparagus with a poached egg on top and a bit of bacon.
Yeah. You've got to stop emailing us about food.
Yeah, stop it, you. We're trying to talk about St George's Day. And
well, actually, I tell you what, the emergency alert is happening on St George's Day today, this afternoon.
It's not very patriotic, is it, really?
Oh, I don't know. It's
the timing isn't very patriotic.
But isn't it? Because it's saying we're ready and prepared. We slayed the dragon. If there was another dragon coming, wouldn't you want to know about it? Debbie says, I've already turned it off.
Oh.
What on earth are they going to tell us? How controlling? They might tell you that a major storm's heading your way, Debbie, or something.
Yeah, lots of you making the point that they are already used around the world. Glenn says we have one here in Australia, but for much more severe conditions. I believe this could be something to do with the future potential nuclear attack. Well, I hope not.
No.
Andy says Germany has a national alert system on phones. Also, their town fire alarms activate at the same time. And Marina says New Zealand already has a system in place and it works.
Sharon says, I really wish the government would stop treating us like children. This country does not need it. Perhaps we do, Sharon. Perhaps we do.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is why some of you really don't like it. I know it seems a little bit Big Brother in a way, but wouldn't you want to know if something was kicking off? In the past, you would have to rely on a radio or TV news bulletin to let you know, and you may not have that on now. So just a quick message to your phone, beep, beep, beep. see what it is, dismiss it.
Yeah. And I mean, we get news to our phones, don't we? Which I quite like. Yeah. You know, getting
News
getting
alerts,
things, news alerts and things. So, I mean, how different is it really? But Bet makes a point. He says we don't get tsunamis, tornadoes, severe earthquakes or volcanoes. We only really get floods and fires. So do we really need a national alert system?
Well, let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Let's
Might
hope it
never
doesn't go
ever
off.
be used.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we have one in place? This is just a test to make sure it works. Shouldn't we have one in place?
Yeah.
The PM's prepared. There he is. There's a deputy PM, as he now is, Oliver Dowden. And there's Grant Shapps. They're all working away. Look at it. And suddenly this goes off on your phone and makes a noise. The only thing I would say, and the point has been made, if you are someone who is living in an abusive relationship and you have a hidden phone somewhere, turn it off. Physically turn the phone off if you don't want that phone
Well, that
to be
isn't enough,
discovered.
is it? You have to switch
No.
off and settings. So go to settings
No,
and then switch it off.
if you actually turn the phone off.
Oh, does that actually work?
That will do it.
Oh, there you go. That goes far enough.
Yeah,
then.
but if you just put it on mute, it's not enough.
Silence not enough. Yeah,
No, silence
exactly.
not enough. So if you are in that situation, turn the phone off until after 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah.
But there you go. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. And give us something to smile about, if you would, this morning, because the world is that bit duller. Actually, it's quite a lot duller after the death of the world's most glamorous housewife, Dame Edna Everage. Her alter ego, Barry Humphries, passed away yesterday at 89.
Yes, he had a huge fan base across the globe, winning our hearts with his mix of charm and razor-sharp wit.
Stephanie Tecci is here. Morning.
Good morning,
Steph.
Stephen and Ellie.
He really was one of a kind.
He was, and I think, you know what, Dame Esther Ranson, who was quite good friends with him, described it perfectly. She said, the world is a bit sadder this morning. And, you know, he had an expansive career. We're talking 7 decades on stage, where he managed to bring to life several characters, including Dame Edna Everage, Sir Les Patterson, Sandy Stone. All these are all iconic characters in a time where comedy was allowed to be comedy, and he was very much at the forefront of it. His death has come as a shock to all because, you know, for weeks he had been brushing off the rumours about his condition. Back in February, he slipped off a rug when he was trying to reach for a book. He had a hip surgery for it, but this week he was readmitted for complications following that surgery. His family say he was, up until the end, he was very much himself. So I think in a really kind of paradoxical way, he went still full of joy.
Yeah.
And it was unexpected. But as you can imagine, the world of comedy has been paying tributes, including the likes of Matt Lucas, who said, I hope all geniuses are like Dame Edna, because he was just one of a kind.
And he's so well respected by fellow comedians.
He is, and also the royal family. You know, there's been many moments he's had with the royal family, including in 2013, where he kind of gate-crashed a royal box where King Charles and Camilla were sitting, and he had his moment, and I don't think any comedian has managed to get that close to the royal family.
Isn't it funny, because, I mean, the character always bragged about being close to the royals and what have you. And yet there's something about, because Edna wasn't really deferential to the royals, and somehow you'd expect them to hate it.
I think
they loved it.
They loved it, the fact that he was taking the mick of high society, and he done it so tastefully. And the thing is, you know, you think about comedy these days and you think so much gets cancelled, and the fact that he managed to get through with his material and to be loved by so many generations is a testament to who he is. And, you know, I always think when I was growing up, I always saw him on Parkinson. And those chats there, and Michael Parkinson says that I've lost a dear friend. He is one of the everlasting comedy characters of all time and one of my favourite guests on my talk show.
Well, it's a guest.
Yeah.
I don't know about guests. He used to just take over. I mean, I just sort of think someone like Parky, who I'm privileged to know, and is just one of the the experts at interviewing, whether it's heavy stuff or light stuff. And the fact that Edna would come on and Parky just couldn't get words in.
She was the star of the show. But, you know, like with most comedians, there's always a bit of a light and shade to him. And he did go through his battles. You know, he'd been married 4 times. He had some fractured relationships with his children, but luckily they were all by his bedside when he passed away. And, you know, he also had addictions with alcohol and sex. But towards towards the end, he turned that to a love for poetry.
Yeah.
And, you know, his art will live on.
And that's something that's really struck me with the tributes, because real fans of Barry Humphries and Dame Edna, they're saying it's not just his comedy. He has such a breadth of talent.
Performer, he was an entertainer to the core. He didn't want to be called an icon, but he's definitely made his stamp on the arts industry. And, you know, he was awarded with the OBE in 2007, and I
Should
think...
have got a Dame.
Yeah, he should have. Dame Edna all the way, a real one. But I guess now it's going to be preparations for his funeral, and I can imagine in Australia, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do a state funeral, because he was that big of a character.
And the Prime Minister's even tweeted, the Australian Prime Minister.
He said he was a gift and also gifted.
See,
Lovely tribute.
I love this. It just says it all, because it's just so not PC. The whole thing was just so not PC. David, hi David, said in 1986 saw Sir Les Patterson perform in a small function room in a Bahrain hotel. He was stopping over on the way to Australia. First 2 rows were covered in spit.
Oh.
Hilarious. And it's just stuff like that. I mean, it's so bad. It's so horrific, but just perfect.
I love it. And the fact, even when I've been going through social media, seeing all the fans and their memories of him and how emotional people are, because he made such an imprint. I think it's such a talent to be able to make someone... When the Queen met possums...
I mean, just look at that. I mean, it's one thing to be himself on the right-hand side there, but that much older picture... I mean, Edna's much more dressed up than Her Majesty.
Yes, glam. And Rob Brydon was just with him 3 days ago. And again, he was sharing how much full of life he was and still full of humour.
I mean, what is nice is he did seem to embrace these younger... I mean, he was very across the sort of younger comedians and what have you. He wasn't standoffish, was he? He just got stuck in.
Because I think a lot of these comedians, you looked up to him as an inspiration. You know, so many people have been talking about how they were inspired by him, and, like, when they look at, you know, thinking of different characters, they were looking at him and his magnetic ability to produce all these fantastic characters, which will always live on.
Do you think, as well, some of these comedians are aware that this type of comedy from Barry Humphries probably couldn't work now? Probably wouldn't be allowed on stage.
I think that's what makes his passing more sad, Ellie, because I think, you know, when people like of that magnitude die, they take their art with them, and it will be hard to be replaced again. And he was still planning on touring, and I think in this world of wokery, I think he still would have managed to get away with these characters because of who he was.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Steph, thanks very much indeed. We'll see you later on. Patricia. Hi, Patricia. I was picked from an audience at one of Dame Edna's shows in Newcastle at the Theatre Royal. Behind the scenes, they dressed me up as Edna, along with an old lady of 94. They dressed her as a nun. We were her guests on the chat show as part of the show. I sat next to Edna on the couch, but the star was the old lady. She was as sharp and as quick as Dame Edna. Brilliant fun, happy memories. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's happy memories. How much joy has he actually brought into our lives? Just by those, even if you've only ever just seen the clips on the TV or watched them on YouTube now and you just have a chuckle. It's fabulous.
What a legacy, though, to make the whole world smile, make the whole world laugh, and anybody from you and I to royalty. Yeah. Just make anybody laugh. And Linda, I should say, in Wales, says, Dame Edna was my favourite. I remember her on Parkinson. R.I.P., you always made me smile. Do keep those memories coming in of Dame Edna, Barry Humphries, especially if you've seen them live. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Make us smile this morning, please, with your memories.
Yeah, it's nice. I think it's a lovely thing to smile at someone's passing because it celebrates them rather than only mourn them. Be nice. It's a nice way to go, to be remembered that way, I think.
What a life.
You'll be in stitches when I pop my clogs, won't you? And you'll know, well, that's what he wanted. Woohoo!
Well, I hope you go to a grand old age.
Thank you.
There'll be lots of smiling as well as grieving, if you put it that way.
Oh, I don't want any grieving. No. Just smile. It is 7:13. Also for you today, the Home Secretary says it's crucial the government has the power to deport migrants without being blocked by the European Court of Human Rights. In the Sunday Telegraph, she said, for Britain to be truly sovereign, it needs to be able to decide who enters our territory.
2 new pictures of Prince Louis have been published as he celebrates his 5th birthday today. Louis is expected to accompany his siblings in the procession from Westminster Abbey during the King's coronation next month.
Tens of thousands of people are taking part in a marathon today. Could be rainy though, according to the forecasters. It's set to be the largest ever, with about 45,000 people taking part, and they reckon it's going to raise £60 million. That shows a picture of Mo Farah there at the end if you're watching on TV, and it's his last ever competitive race today.
Another legend.
Another legend.
Yeah.
So he's bowing out.
Good luck to him, yes, and what a career he's had. So it's lovely, isn't it, that he's ending his competitive career, competitive racing in London.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and if you're taking part this morning, you're listening on the radio or whatever, you're gearing up to head to... Where did they kick off? Blackheath. Yeah, I think it's Blackheath. So if you're gearing up, if you're on your way or preparing, limbering up, send us a message, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Best of luck to you.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
good
do
luck,
it.
good luck.
I wouldn't do it in a million years.
No, neither would I.
It would be terrible. It's my idea of hell.
I'd watch it, but I wouldn't partake.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me, but I really, really am inspired by people who do.
Not that inspired.
Not that inspired, but I'd be inspired to donate.
I'd cheer you on.
Yeah, cheer you on. That's as much as you're going to get. But it's amazing if people can do a marathon, because it's not just the day, is it? It's all that intensive training and the fundraising. It's thousands of pounds that you have to raise now each. And yeah, no, Tom is just saying in our ear, it's very boring. I've heard that before. You can train your body to do anything, but it's the pounding of feet on the pavement for 3 or 4 hours. Apparently, it's just so boring.
Oh, that's not inspiring people.
That's not, well, tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard people who've run marathons say you can train your body. It doesn't feel that awful, but it's the mind games. It's the same sound for 3 or 4 hours. But maybe the crowds keep you going.
That'll be what it is. Crowds every stretch of the way.
That's what's going to keep
you
you going.
Don't do what that woman did in I don't know what race she was running. The Scottish runner. Did you see? And she ran some race and got came first or whatever and fastest ever time. And it turns out she'd driven 2.5 miles of it in a car. Someone had picked her up.
You're joking?
No, and driven her 2.5 miles. That was an ultra marathon. It's even further.
Cheeky little.
Anyway, she fessed up to it in the end. But the fact she stood there on the podium...
The audacity.
Thinking she'd been driven round the course.
Wow.
That's great, though, isn't it? I mean, that's the sort of thing I'd do, to be fair. I'd try and find a short.
I'd be driven the whole way, so... Hope you're all having a nice time.
So don't cheat, whatever you do.
Don't do that. And there are warnings about protesters today as well. I think Mo Farah said, don't do it, because there are people running there for a really good cause. So don't think about it, is what Mo Farah was saying. And please, I hope we don't see protesters try and disrupt that, because there are lots of people who've trained very, very hard, and they're running for their loved ones, and they're raising lots of money, so...
It'd be very unpopular.
You would. We're talking about public opinion. It's not going to go down well, is it?
No. Now... In serious matters, British embassy staff being told to leave Sudan as soon as possible as fighting in the country intensifies. The PM chaired an emergency government Cobra meeting yesterday, and more talks are expected today.
But as airports and motorways become war zones, how dangerous could the evacuation be? Well, earlier we spoke to the political commentator Peter Spencer, who said a foreign crisis is the last thing that Rishi Sunak needs.
In it from his point of view, you think that you got a couple of generals have fallen out in a faraway country of which we know little, and suddenly he's got to switch his concentration away from all the other things that he's got on his plate, like the local elections, like losing his deputy and so on, and focus on that. I mean, I'm reminded of something that Harold Wilson once said when Harold Macmillan once said when asked if anything troubled him in politics. He said, well, events, dear boy, just events. That's what this is.
Well, meanwhile, political rows are rumbling on after the whole Raab resignation debacle. Now, whose side do you want? We sort of know from a lot of the views we had yesterday, the majority of you saying, well, did Dominic Raab really do anything wrong? Are there questions to be asked about how impartial civil servants actually are? Well, one Tory peer has said civil servants really need to be open about their political affiliations. They have to sort of pretend to be neutral at the moment. Lord Maud has claimed that Dominic Raab's resignation has really raised questions about accountability and impartiality within the civil service.
But should civil servants be made to declare which political party they support? Well, joining us now is the academic and professor of politics, Matt Goodwin. Good morning to you, Matt. So what do you make of Lord Maud's comments? Do you think there does need to be a robust culture change in Whitehall?
I'm certainly not quite won over by the argument that we should have civil servants declaring their political beliefs, not least for the fact that our political beliefs change over time. And this is also an institution that's supposed to be impartial and in theory, independent of politics. But I think the Raab case is interesting in a way for another reason. In my eyes, at least, it's showing us that I think within the civil service, there's clearly evidence that it's morphed into what we might call a culture of victimhood, that essentially some of the complaints that were levelled at Dominic Raab, having read the report, having read his response over the weekend, it's quite clear in my mind that these are often not what you would classify as quote-unquote bullying. And I think this is where we are now as a society. Minor transgressions, so-called microaggressions, slight offence, are all taken as evidence of a much broader character trait. And I don't think that's a particularly great place for any institution or society to be. And the last point I'd add here, Ellie, is if you look at the response to Raab's departure from across the political spectrum, on the right, on the left, in the middle, the consensus today seems to be that maybe he shouldn't really have gone at all. And that, I think, is a remarkable state of affairs.
I mean, it does seem a bit of I can see the argument that is being made with all of this, but they're also saying, politicians, ministers should be able to pick their own. I mean, you'd only end up picking people who fundamentally agree with you, wouldn't you? Which actually, in the great scheme of things, doesn't help the political process or the practical side of the political process.
Yeah, I don't think having political beliefs as some kind of protected characteristic is the way to go here, because if you do that in the civil service, you'll probably have to do it in every other public organisation. How do you measure it? What happens when people change their views over time? I mean, it just becomes incredibly complex. The other issue alongside that, by the way, is that we need to get back to a civil service that actually does its job and doesn't leak constantly against ministers. I've been quite struck by the extent of leaks and what we might call, unorthodox, unprofessional behaviour within the civil service ever since the Brexit referendum. I've always been taken aback at how many stories refer to civil servants leaking information about negotiations and so forth. So there are questions to ask about the civil service, but I don't think asking civil servants to declare their political beliefs, their political ideology is the way to go.
And where do you think this row leaves the relationship between civil servants and ministers? Because there was this war of words, wasn't there, between Dominic Raab and the union that represents civil servants. Dominic Raab suggesting that perhaps civil servants can attempt to block policy, and civil servants coming back and saying that's a dangerous conspiracy theory. Where do we go from here?
Well, at the end of 13 years of Conservative government, I think relations are pretty poor, certainly pretty shaky. I think one of the interesting remarks that Raab made in his departure was this notion of cultural resistance, which is the idea that whatever he was trying to do within the civil service was either getting diluted or blocked. And he's not the first person to make that argument, of course. Lord Frost, David Frost, has made a similar argument in the past, and Conservative ministers often feel that there is a sort of ideological orthodoxy that works against them. Now, are those the complaints of disgruntled Conservative ministers, or do we have a problem within an institution that is overwhelmingly dominated by members of the elite graduate class who, as we know from the data, have tended to be moving leftwards on lots of cultural issues over the last decade or so? This is something I argue in my book, of course, Values, Voice and Virtue, that in most of our institutions, they do tend to now be dominated by graduates from pretty elite privileged backgrounds, and they've been moving leftwards on issues like Brexit, immigration, the small boats and so on. So there are I think, reasons to be concerned, reasons to explore. But I'm really not in favour of having everybody sort of, publicly declare where they stand on the political landscape. I think we can come up with something a bit more imaginative and subtle than that.
OK, Matt Goodwin, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, are you ready for this? That's the government's emergency alert. It's due in T-minus 9 hours. We'll have more on that. This is GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin,
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
"7:28, good morning to you. Happy St George's Day. To Anne, particularly. Hi, Anne. She's got little flags on her window.
Anne, can we see a picture, please? And if anybody does have little flags, or big flags today, can you send us some pictures, please?
Yeah.
Be very nice to see.
I think it's nice to celebrate, isn't it?
Yeah. Quite like to see flags. You don't see them very often in this country, do you?
You don't, but I never quite understand why St Patrick's Day... Is it because of America that St Patrick's Day has just become this huge thing? And all the rest of the home nations, nothing really much happens.
No. I think it's the drinking culture with St Patrick's Day. It's just become this, like, thing for
day out.
bars and clubs, and, yeah, it becomes a day out. I think it would help if St George's Day was a bank holiday. We've got a bank holiday tomorrow. I think that would really help. That's what I'd do if I was Prime Minister.
Would you?
One of the first things, I think, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Just think, have St George's Day bank holiday.
I say where you're being criticised because you're not wearing red and white.
Am I not?
No one's mentioned me, which is fine.
Do you know what? I did think this morning, and it was too late. I was already in the taxi. I thought I should have wore a red dress today, so I do apologise. I did think that. But it was too late.
I haven't really got anything red. I haven't got really got like a red tie. So anyway, and I only had a blue shirt left. So
well, there you go. Well, at least we match each other today. That's something.
This is it. It's washing day for me tomorrow. So if you're wondering what I'm doing tomorrow, washing machine for me all day.
And maybe a nap.
And a nap. I will be having a nap. I have an afternoon nap most days, even when I'm not working, because, well, I've done breakfast shows for the best part of 20 years, so you get into the swing of it. So I will be having an afternoon nap this afternoon, about 3 o'clock. If you're going to do the same, you like a quick 40 winks, prepare to be woken up, because the government's going to send an alert to all mobile phone users today.
Yes, this is to test the system, which is intended to warn us of life-threatening events such as floods or wildfires.
Well, our national reporter Paul Hawkins has the lowdown.
Last year's Storm Eunice. It battered Wales, the west of England, and this guy.
Tom, I can tell you, in the last few minutes, it had strengthened so significantly that if I just show you, up over here, we were standing up there just now, we couldn't stand up. We were literally getting blown around.
Rare but extreme weather like this, including fires and floods, are why the government says we need an emergency alert system.
Well, this is another tool in the toolkit in order to help the government respond to emergencies and help protect people's lives. And it's very similar to what we have in Japan, United States and elsewhere.
At 3 p.m. today, you'll get something like this on your phone, a test for the new alert system. It'll also have a loud siren-like sound or vibration lasting for about 10 seconds. In Tonga, during last year's tsunami, this is how their emergency alert system sounded. In fact, quite a few countries have an emergency alert system, including Australia, Canada, and Italy. Now it's the UK's turn.
We won't get any information about people's personal phones. This is a broadcast signal that goes to every mobile phone. The government doesn't find out anything about your phone.
As long as your phone has a 4G or 5G signal, and if it's an iPhone running iOS software 14.5, or for Android phones, Android 11 software or later, you'll get the text and the noise even if it's on silent.
If you're living with an abusive partner, this could put you at risk.
For survivors of domestic violence, however, who rely on secret phones, charities like Refuge have produced this video explaining how to turn off the alert.
These alerts will make a noise even if that phone's on silent, so we really want all survivors to know they've got a phone and the discovery of that phone would put them at risk. They can turn off these alerts.
The AA have also recommended drivers turn off the alert if they're behind the wheel at 3 p.m. But for the rest of us, the government recommends setting your phone to receive the alerts, which, it says, many of us may not receive for months or even years.
So these are extreme weather conditions. There is a danger to life, and only idiotic reporters are going to be having this kind of weather.
Paul Hawkins, GB News.
Roger's not happy.
Oh.
No, Roger says, I've survived more than 60 years without government intervention. This is just another nail in the coffin. Control of the population. Oh, come on, Roger.
Gavin says, when was the last time an alert was necessary? 1945?
Yeah, but things have changed, haven't they? What about that terrible weather that Paul was out in then? Nigel says, really struggling to understand the fuss about the national alert system. We have it in Spain. It was checked last year. We haven't had a live alert yet, but when we do, I'm sure we will be grateful for it. I mean, if something awful was going to... And they might be able to do it just in an area.
Well, I think they can, yeah.
So if there's really terrible weather or something like that, really, really bad weather, Roger, wherever you live, wouldn't you want to know about it? But then some people are not happy on the other side because Dean says, what about people without a smartphone? Then you won't get it.
No.
Simple as that.
But if you've ever spent time in the US, especially, during storm season, you will know that these messages are used and they can be really helpful in order to be prepared. It lets you know a storm's coming, when's it going to hit, and that kind of thing. We are seeing some more storms in this country, aren't we? Severe ones.
Weather's getting worse. Talfin. Hi, Talfin. I don't know why people have got a problem. I will keep the phone on, as it could be used in the future in case of a national emergency, and surely this would be an excellent use of the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Got to agree, really. I don't see what the problem is, but some of you do. So let us know. Educate me. gbnews@gbnews.uk. Up next, so all the papers for you. We'll have a right good delve through the Sundays.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Nah, what?
Oh, Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to say something rude about me then, which I would take this morning. I would take it as long as it's done in a hilarious way, as Dame Edna would have done. I mean, there's great pictures this morning. Have a look at this on the Star this morning. It's not the best picture, I don't think, of Dame Edna Everage, but nevertheless, dominating the front of the Star. We got it.
If not, we can pull it up.
Tuned out. The director had tuned out by my banter. But there you go. It's nice that, you know, she is absolutely, you know, front and centre, as she always liked to be, of course. Good night, possums is the headline there. And so many people, and it says celebrities are mourning Barry Humphries, which of course they are, because he had a lot of celebrity friends. He knew everybody. But nevertheless, I think it's us. It's the punters who are remembering him, really, after he died yesterday at the age of 89. That's my favourite picture on
You
the
like
Observer.
that, don't you?
I like that, because that's just her.
Dame Edna as she was, yeah.
Yeah, love it.
This is the Observer. It's also got a story about the Raab scandal, asking if Tories should politicise the civil service. They're asking if that's the right move.
Yeah, probably not.
I think you wade into a lot more problems, don't you?
I think you probably do. Meanwhile, do you fancy a holiday to get away from all this scandal and whatever's going on, whether you agree with it all or not? Perhaps do what Boris Johnson's done. Borrow a friend's villa. This friend apparently charges £4,000 a night. I don't know if Boris is paying that, whether he's staying there free, gratis and for nothing. You never know. But anyway, he's out in the Caribbean. 10th holiday, apparently, fourth holiday in 10 months.
10 months.
Not the 10th holiday in 4 months. That would be
extreme.
That would be a bit over the top.
But he's got friends in high places, friends with nice properties.
Mm.
It's not bad if you can get it. This is the Mail. Warnings about extremists and their plot to spook the King's horses during the coronation with rape alarms.
I mean,
it's obviously quite a distressing headline. Hopefully it's not going to happen.
No, let's hope
It's
not.
just based on sources, isn't it, at this point, and speculation. So hopefully not actually something that's going to take place.
No, let's hope not. If you are thinking of going away on holiday, just remember, there's no place like home. Emma Burnell is here to take us through the papers, along with Tom Slater. I should say, for those listening on the radio, you do look like Dorothy.
I am wearing a blue gingham dress. I nearly wore the hair in bunches. You can't see, but I'm obviously wearing ruby slippers under the desk.
Yes, sparkly ones.
Fabulous. Why not? Tom, let's have a look at the former Deputy Prime Minister in the Sunday Times.
Yes, so this is reporting that the Prime Minister's aides wanted to save Raab's skin because of the fact that they were concerned about the precedent that it would set, because of understanding amongst them that a lot of these allegations were not nearly as significant as they were being talked up to be.
No, they weren't.
And I think a lot of people looking at that report when it came out were kind of wondering, is this it? I mean, I think reading that report, you might say, this is not someone I'd like to work for, necessarily. Sounds like a bit of a git. But that's not the same as bullying.
No, say what you mean, Tom.
I think that's an important point here, because, you know, bullying, when people hear the word bullying, I think the dictionary definition is someone who seeks to harm or intimidate someone.
Yeah.
You know, you can imagine him effing and jeffing in the office, or, you know, just be actually trying to menace members of staff and so on. The two examples that have been circulating is he called someone's work woeful and useless. What if it was woeful and useless? And this kind of situation in which there's been, again, talk in the Observer and so on about the Tory party politicising the civil service. But if you've got a civil service which is willing to try and bring down ministers, who, for all their flaws, are democratically elected and chosen by elected governments, then you're going to set up that political clash anyway.
Do you think they are trying to bring down ministers? Do you think they are blocking policies?
Well, there's noted evidence of this. There's certainly a lot of anecdotes that you hear members of Parliament talk about. I remember hearing at an event a while back, Kemi Badenoch talking about when she was trying to introduce single-sex facilities in government buildings, so making sure there's male and female toilets and so on, and that when she tried to push this policy through, she faced a lot of pushback from civil servants who would put notes on it saying, we're not sure if we can do this doesn't seem acceptable, the language, this is going to offend people, so on. There is a problem here. I'm not trying to say that I have a clear-eyed understanding of what everyone in the civil service thinks. I'm sure a lot of them do work very hard and try to leave their own politics at the door, but this is a problem that we've seen, particularly when it comes to quite contentious social issues, whereby there is a lot of resistance from the blob, as it were.
But did we reach a point, on the basis that you seem to think he probably shouldn't have gone, but there's no way he could have stayed from a government perspective is there in the fact that if they had said, well, actually, we don't think this constitutes a great deal, we're going to keep him on, then actually that's just ammunition for Labour, isn't it?
I think that's right. I mean, I think Sunak really set himself up for it when he made ethics in public life, in quotation marks, his kind of standard, because people are going to hold him to that. Now, in this instance, do I think keeping Raab on would be a great ethical, moral failure? I don't. But the problem is when you have a report which, at least according to its own, I would think quite strange definition of what bullying is, has found him to have
But wasn't the definition, I mean, the lawyer says in the report, the definition used is one that was used in a High Court case about bullying, so it's quite a high standard.
For a reasonable
So there were 12 accusations, 10 of which were not reached and 2 were. The problem that Dominic Raab had, he could have said, hey, I got 10 out of 2, but he'd previously said on the television, if I am found to have been caught bullying in this report at all, I will resign. There was nowhere else he could go.
But you've looked at the detail. Do you think that was bullying? Hand on heart, come on.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there are 2 issues here. First of all, there is this idea that the only way to get good work out of people is to be, like, just as mean as possible to them. Whether it's
that's a bad boss.
That's incredibly bad boss. But I do think that there were unnecessarily punitive measures threatened. That, for me, is where it crossed the line. When you don't just say, you have done this work badly, go away and do it again. We've all had that. I've had to do that with other people. But there's a difference between you have done this, and I am threatening you with these measures that are not part of this process at the moment, that I'm just going to randomly introduce. That is bullying, that's threatening, that's unacceptable in the workplace.
But that was to do with the ambassador, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who it was. If you're introducing, this is what
an ambassador who suggested there should be Spanish boots on the ground in Gibraltar. I mean, it's senseless.
The ambassador probably made a mistake, but the question is not did the ambassador make a mistake and did Dominic Raab have a right, but did he have a right to do it in the way he did? And then this report has found that he did not.
But I think we need to remember that these people have incredibly important jobs. You know, these people are not being exploited on the minimum wage and so on. They should be held to a high standard. I wasn't inside the Justice Department or the Foreign Office. I don't really know what was going on necessarily beyond what people have reported. But I think it paints a slightly strange image of the civil service and the people who are again supposed to be there to implement the policy of the government. They're not there to do their own thing. Where they seem to be so hurt by rough criticism. I mean, it does feel like weaponised.
I honestly, as somebody who thinks a lot about how organisations work, a lot of my consultancy is helping people to do strategy, and sometimes that's internal. The literal worst way to get things out of people long time is to make them feel undermined.
But that's the management style.
That is a management style, but that's what he's being looked at, is his management style bullying, and it has been found to be in 2 cases.
I mean, it was upheld, wasn't it? Emma, let's have a look at the Times, shall we? A really distressing story about an MI6 spy. Tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, this is a terrible story where this young man who had been working at MI5, and whilst working at MI5, his domestic life had got so bad that his wife had fled to a domestic violence shelter. So this is before he moved to MI6. This had already happened. He was then vetted to become he was implanted into a Taliban-controlled village. Before that, during the vetting, he was found to have the highest level of emotional distress it is possible to find. He was described as having traits closer to a psychopath than an ordinary person. And yet he put them into this incredibly awful situation where he was seeing the Taliban behaving in such a way. So he watched a whole family being beheaded. He was asked to hold the head of a decapitated child. And this has pushed this person who was clearly rife for being pushed over the line, far, far over the line. He killed his own child and has been found guilty of murder and put into a psychiatric hospital, presumably for life. And, this just seems to be a failing at every step of this process. They failed him,
actually.
They failed us, and they failed the government.
Yeah.
Well, his lawyers are saying now that he was used by MI6. He was used in order to infiltrate that Taliban camp, and never should have been there in the first place.
No, absolutely not. And you do... he is a clearly troubled individual and was a clearly troubled individual before he went there.
Should never be put in that
But he
type
should
of stressful
exactly,
situation.
absolutely. And it just feels like such an appalling abuse of that role of power and that gatekeeping role.
Yeah. Tom, we've just got a couple of minutes to look at the Sunday Telegraph. And these I hate scammers. Hate scammers. I think it's disgusting. And one which has really sort of got through to a lot of people is this Hi Mum WhatsApp. It's spreading to text messages now.
It is, and I'm sure many people will have seen these messages themselves or known someone who's seen them where you, essentially out of the blue...
My mum's got one, yeah.
Getting a text message saying, "Hi Mum, I'm out and about, I'm on someone else's phone, it's broken, I can't talk right now, can you send me some money?" And in the past year, 1.5 million has been extracted. I mean, that's only the amount that they can actually trace, obviously. So this was originally very popular on WhatsApp. You imagine them kind of just firing these out en masse in the hopes that someone will sort of respond to them. And again, it's horrible because, like so many of these scams, it's playing on people's good nature. They'll think, oh, God, they're in trouble. They might, before they've got a chance to actually properly reflect on it, to think, is this genuine, worded in such a way that it sounds like the sort of message you might get if your teenager was, stuck out somewhere and needed help. And it's also, I think, probably in part at least a legacy of that period during lockdown where it seems like all of those kind of texts and internet scams seem to really ramp up. There's probably a whole kind of infrastructure which exists now, which people can use to, again, exploit people in the most horrible way.
Yeah. Well, look, if you get a message like that, call the number and speak to your child if they're actually there, which they're probably not. It's wicked. It's wicked.
It really is.
Emma, Tom, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. Happy St George's Day to you both.
Yes, happy St George's.
Happy Shakespeare's birthday as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, indeed, it is. And his death day as well,
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
That's cheery, isn't it? If we're going to be more traditional today, let us celebrate an inspiring Roman soldier who stood firm in his belief in Christianity on this occasion of St George's Day.
Yes, it is nice, isn't it, to mark our patron saint. But is it still relevant in 2023? Well, for the residents in Tamworth, they've been getting involved with everything medieval and watching some real knights in shining armour. Our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson went along for the action.
On the weekend of St George's Day, Tamworth has been transformed into a medieval paradise, with jousting, mob football and food fit for a saint. Legend has it that St George arrived upon a village where a dragon was terrorising the local people, and after slaying the beast, villagers held a feast in tribute to his bravery. In Tamworth, capital of the ancient kingdom of Mercia, the council celebrate the English patron saint with a free fun day for all the family. Head of events A.D. Ramsell explains what's on show.
So we've been doing St George's Day in Tamworth for over 14 years and it's just grown over the years, and what we have today, we have, as you can see, we've got the living history encampment here, the medieval immersive campsite. Over in the main arena we have the jousting, the skirmishes, we have the animatronic dragon, and we've got the castle open, of course. We've got activities for the kids. So there's so much going on that everyone can come down, all the families, and immerse themselves in the atmosphere of the medieval times and St George.
St George's status as a warrior made him an inspiration for the Crusaders. And jouster at this event, Christabel Clark, explains why folklore has created the image of St George as a knight in shining armour.
Well, jousting was something that noblemen would do and knights would do to compete with each other in between kind of downtime of war. So to keep their skills up, but eventually it just became something they loved doing for fun as well. St George was this kind of noble, chivalric knight who really protected the little person and it stood up for people, and that's hopefully something we'll show in our show today.
The origin of this flag and its connection to St George is not clearly documented, but it is known that English Crusaders rode into battle with the flag in the 12th century. Fast forward to the present day, do people still care about celebrating our patron saint?
I think it's just an excuse to come out and be proud as well of our country, I think, and why not? We should celebrate that, it's a lovely time for everyone to get together, all families, all generations, to come and enjoy it and to really mark this special day. I think it's a really special day, St George's Day, and I don't think it should be pushed under the rug, definitely not.
I walk around here a lot and we walk past the castle and we take it for granted, but actually so many people come to see the castle, so it just brings to life all the good stuff that's happening around here, and it makes you kind of realise what it was like back in the day, and I guess that's why a lot of people are here today.
Because nothing ever happens for St George's Day. It's always generally Paddy's Day, which we've got a big Irish heritage and it's nice. But it's nice to see it for our own patron saint.
Whether there really was a sleigh dragon or not, St George's legacy has lasted for over 1,000 years. In England, people up and down the country use the day to celebrate our history and the people we have become. Jack Carson, GB News, Tamworth.
That looks like a great day out,
Looks
actually.
fun, doesn't it?
I love all the jousting and the medieval stuff. Fantastic. Happy St George's Day, and if you are celebrating it, have a great time doing it. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Relatively unsettled second half of the weekend for pretty much all areas of the UK, all thanks to low pressure being sat right across the UK. That's bringing showers and longer spells of rain to various locations. The first one will start pushing its way into southern areas of England and move into southeastern areas throughout this morning, so it could provide a quite a wet London Marathon if you are running here. Some sunnier spells developing elsewhere, but that will allow some showers to pop off, particularly for Wales, central northern areas of England. One or two of those could be quite sharp with the odd rumble of thunder. Further rain pushing into northeast Scotland, that will fall as a wintry mixture over the higher ground areas as we've seen cold air begin to dig in from the Arctic. So really quite cold compared to recent days, particularly around coastal Scotland where we'll see gales developing, and it will feel quite bitter if you're exposed to that. Elsewhere, the showers will tend to ease their way off as we head throughout this evening and overnight. That will allow a few clearer intervals to develop and the temperatures to drop off ever so slightly down into low single figures, but a patchy frost is possible across some areas of Scotland and slightly further south as well. But we do have further rain pushing from Northern Ireland into Wales and southern England as we head into Monday morning. So quite a damp start to the new working week here, and that will continue to progress its way eastwards, so turning quite cloudy even for the Midlands and into the southeast for the afternoon. Some sunnier spells developing for Northern Ireland, Scotland and into northern areas of England for the afternoon, but again a stream of showers still pushing in across the north, those now falling even to sleet at lower levels and really quite cold for the time of year, about 5 degrees below average. We'll continue to see some showers as we head into Monday evening, but the ridge of high pressure wants to build its way in for Tuesday and help settle things down slightly, but those temperatures are going to remain well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News, we're starting the conversation and having the debate that the establishment won't have. No one will be cancelled. Join me at 4 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing all the big topics of the weekend.
Oh, get cracking!
Always honest, always fun. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, you're watching Breakfast on GB News. It's 8 o'clock, you're here with Stephen and Ellie.
Yes, good morning to you. Today, the comedy world has lost an absolute legend. Tributes are pouring in for Barry Humphries, who's died at 89. Also today, Get Out Now. Staff scramble to evacuate the embassy in Khartoum as fighting in Sudan escalates.
Happy birthday, Prince Louis. The Prince and Princess of Wales released a special family photo to celebrate their youngest turning 5 years old. And on your marks, get set, go. Runners take to the streets for the 2023 London Marathon.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Happy St George's Day.
Yes, happy St George's Day.
We are marking St George's Day with an emergency alarm this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And it's got, I tell you what, it's split you. This has. So if you've got a mobile phone, the emergency national alarm will go off at 3 o'clock. It's just a test. First time it's been used. Mike in Kent says, I wonder how much money the government's wasted on phone alerts. The only reason there would be to alert us is if Putin pushes the button.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
Lots of people mentioning nuclear war. Margaret says, why would you refuse to acknowledge an alert system when it could be a lifesaver?
Yeah.
We could be talking about a terrorist on the run. I'd certainly want to know if a bomb had gone off somewhere close to me. A local bomb or even a nuclear attack at worst. Margaret does mention nuclear attack. Mary says, no one is remembering the East Coast floods of 1952 when an alert might have saved hundreds of lives.
Phil says, I've switched mine off. I won't be drawn into the scaremongering. But Elaine says, we're not watching as much live TV or radio, so that if any major alerts or breaking news, we wouldn't see it immediately. So I'm happy to get a phone alert. And actually, another Mike says, during the war, when bombers were heading our way, we had sirens to warn us. How stupid to object to something that could save your life.
Yeah. Similar to what Margaret was saying.
Yeah.
And we've upset the cats.
Oh,
Susie
yes.
says, you just played that short clip of the alarm. All of our cats ran out of the bedroom, obviously scared them witless.
Got their attention then. Got their attention.
Maybe be aware if you've got cats at home, when it goes off at 3 p.m, Timmy could be scared witless.
Well, I think he'll be fine 20 seconds later.
He'll be all right. Give him a cuddle, he'll be fine.
Yes, I doubt he'd even wake up, to be honest. turn it off. You know what cats are like. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. It's definitely split you this morning. gbviews@gbnews.uk. And brace yourself for 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes, yes. And do keep your memories coming of Barry Humphries. Dame Edna, very, very sadly, died yesterday in Australia. Tributes pouring in from around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it fair to say that the world is a bit duller this morning? I mean, how many decades? And actually, when you look at some of the very old clips, he was going a very long time, winning our hearts with that charm mixed with absolute razor-sharp wit.
Well, our showbiz reporter, Stephanie Secchi, is here with us now.
Good morning, Stephen
to you,
and
Stephanie.
Ellie.
I mean, what an absolute loss.
70 years on stage, a 70-year career. So you can imagine comedy is feeling, the comedy world is feeling like it's lost its bright spark, its bright lilac spark. And, you know, it's one of those ones where how everything's happened with this situation is very upsetting and quite sad because it was just...
I mean, it's just, that's a legacy, just making us smile by seeing her.
I was just about to say, like, he spanned so many generations. I think he's managed to put a smile to so many homes, of people in their homes, in their living rooms, just watching him performing character, whether it's been Dame Edna Everage or just being himself. You know, for me, I've been watching a lot of his stuff that he did as Sandy Stone. I found them quite poignant and stripped back because he actually says Dame Edna wasn't his best work. You know, even though people know him for that, Barry Humphries was always proud of the other stuff that he did as well, which sometimes gets overshadowed. But, you know, it was just on Thursday he released a statement thanking people for their support because he had just gone back into hospital following complications from a hip surgery. So he was kind of always brushing away his condition, and I think he had plans to tour again this year later in Australia with his one-man show, The Man Behind the Mask, which unfortunately he won't be able to carry out now. But he was surrounded by his wife, Lizzie Spender, who he had been together for 30 years, and his 4 children. You know, he had a bit of a rough relationship with them, but towards the end they managed to patch things up.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was just saying that, I mean, people always think it's a bit strange. I like to smile. When someone like this dies, although it's sad, a good age, 89, and I like the fact that we can smile and remember and say thank you. And in the spirit of that, a lot of you have been emailing in saying, Parky, Parky, Parky.
Yes.
Have a look.
My daughter Val May, who was a lovely child, Judy, you met her when she was just a little one. I brought her round to see you, bless her. She is into shoplifting in a major way. Waitrose, I said, look...
Do it at Harrods.
I said, you're bringing shame on the family. Can't it be Harrods or somewhere?
It's just, I love the fact that Parky there, he just can't keep
It was
himself
Parky's
together.
show, but technically it was Dame Edna's show as well. Yeah. And Parky's obviously reacted to his death and said, I have lost a dear friend. Dame Edna Everage was one of the everlasting comedy characters of all time, as well as one of my favourite guests on my talk show.
Yeah. And it's funny because Edna, I mean, I know, as you say, Barry may have liked some of his other work a bit better, but Edna had a life of her own. I mean, we do sort of... I sort of think she was almost real.
I know, and when I grew up, I hate to say this, but I actually thought she was real. I thought Dame Edna was... I didn't realise that he was in costume. I grew up thinking she was actually a real-life person, is because she had been on TV that much. And, you know, even when you see at the Queen's Jubilee, she was always dressed as Dame Edna, and she's had many royal moments as Dame Edna. And, you know, she's been in so many films as well, so...
Yeah, she was in the last Ab Fab,
yeah, and she was in
in
Spice World as well. She's been in The Hobbit, so there's been so much that she's... Yeah, she was in The Hobbit. Yeah.
Really?
Yep, she was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, he was.
He was.
He was.
Yeah, he was. Not Dame Edna.
Not Dame, no,
well, that would have been a moment. That would have been a moment.
Yeah.
And there's been so many amazing tributes from fellow comics as well, which is really lovely to see, the amount of respect there is from the comedy world.
And, you know, there's quite a few comics who are in Australia at the moment, like Rob Brydon. He only saw Barry 3 days ago, and also Jimmy Carr, who says it's been quite bittersweet for him to perform because he says that he doesn't feel like there'll be another performer who can make people laugh or work the crowd as Barry Humphries did.
And close to the royals as well, which I don't think any other comic has got as close to the royals as
made
Dame Edna
them
did.
laugh openly. Last night, a spokesperson for King Charles says that he is penning a personal tribute, which he will be sending to Barry's family.
I mean, that will be... And I hope we get... I know it's the family. I hope it's an open tribute.
I hope it is as well.
That we get a glimpse into that because, you know, it's... one of my favourite clips is that one at the Royal Variety.
Oh, my gosh, that's hilarious.
I mean, Charles and Camilla just can't... They don't know what to do with themselves. They have no idea what's going on. Who else would have the nerve to do that?
I don't think we're ever going to see a comedian in the royal box at the Royal Variety Show ever again. So that's a part of his legacy.
And also what's lovely, if you're listening on the radio, we've got some wonderful pictures here of the late Queen Elizabeth meeting Dame Edna, who's actually dressed up more than the Queen.
He's bringing the glam.
But look at the smile she's bringing to Her late Majesty. It's amazing.
Fabulous. Radio 2 also will be playing a series that Barry fronted called Forgetting Musical Classics.
Oh, right.
Which was quite a very good series. He was kind of reflecting all the music over the past century that we tend to forget about. So Radio 2 will be doing their own tribute as well.
Well, it's lovely that he's being celebrated, I think. Or she's being celebrated.
Both of them are celebrated. They became one person.
Well, they did, didn't they? Steph, thank you very much indeed. And you never know, those amazing outfits.
I'm going to start bidding for them.
Well, I'm going to say they may go on sale for charity.
Glitz and glamour.
You'd look fabulous.
Those glasses definitely should, shouldn't they? Yeah. What an accessory.
It's a little bit of history. There are very few people, and we've lost some big names already this year. I think there are very few people who span the globe in the way that Edna did. I mean, she did all the US talk shows and all that sort of thing. It's huge over there.
And could just make anybody laugh, you know?
Yeah.
What a skill to make the royalty laugh, to make you and me laugh, all around the world. What a legacy, and that's something to celebrate, isn't it? Something to smile about.
Yes.
Do send in your memories if you ever saw Dame Edna or Barry Humphries live. Let us know.
Yeah.
How you're remembering him or her today. GBNews at gbnews.uk.
Depending how you view him, really. That's just lovely.
I thought Dame Edna was Dame Edna, a real person.
I think you do as a kid.
Yeah, I remember being told, that was Barry Humphries dressed up, and I said, what?
But it's a bit like a lot of that.
Couldn't fathom it.
It's like a lot of the comedy from the sort of 80s, and particularly the 80s, which was actually very adult. But the kids, it's like Basil Brush.
Yeah.
You know, that was
the
actually...
kids love it.
The kids love it because they just don't get the joke. And I think there's a lot of that with Dame Edna. The kids could watch it, they just wouldn't get it.
It's the flamboyancy, isn't it? I think that's what the kids love, is all the colours. And
the rest of it.
The rest of it, maybe a bit...
titter quietly.
And probably for the best.
Yeah. Keep your thoughts coming through. Now on to serious matters this morning. British embassy staff are being told to leave Sudan as soon as possible as fighting there intensifies. The PM has chaired a Cobra meeting, that was yesterday. More crisis talks are expected today.
But as airports and motorways become war zones, just how dangerous could this evacuation be? Well, earlier we spoke to the political commentator Peter Spencer about the risks that Brits face getting out.
Years, and we note that President Biden has taken the same basic position as the Brits, which is to get people up as soon as, and as you rightly say, of course, Rishi Sunak had to chair a Cobra meeting yesterday. And looking at it from his point of view, you think, look, you've got a couple of generals have fallen out in a faraway country of which we know little, and suddenly he's got to switch his concentration away from all the other things that he's got on his plate, like the local elections, like losing his deputy and so on, and focus on that. I mean, I'm reminded of something that Harold Wilson once said when Harold Macmillan once said when asked if anything troubled him in politics. He said, "Well, events, dear boy, just events." That's what this is.
Why has it warranted something like a Cobra meeting, Peter? I mean, obviously we've got diplomatic staff over there, and there will be civilians over there, but presumably not that many.
Just one is enough, isn't it? I mean, the point is you have an intensely volatile situation there. You've got a couple of generals who've fallen out spectacularly, chucking bombs and things around, and so anything could happen at any point. That's part of the problem, is the fact that there's no way of knowing which way this is going to go, and until just a few days ago, no one really knew there was going to be a problem anyway. And so, of course, they're playing safe, and of course, they have no choice but to do so. I mean, I'm just reminded, just as sort of parenthetically, I just mentioned the fact that it's probably rather an uncomfortable reminder for Dominic Raab of when we had the sudden evacuation from Afghanistan, which didn't, I have to say, go particularly well. Where was Dominic Raab at the time as Foreign Secretary? He was on holiday.
Well, yes, good point, Peter. I mean, we do know that James Cleverly has cut short his Pacific tour that he's on right now in order to come back and be in these meetings. But it is going to be complicated, isn't it? I mean, we touched at the top there about airports and roads becoming war zones. We're seeing pictures now of bombs going off. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to evacuate people, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's one reason why they had to have a Cobra meeting, to get all the heads together to work it out, because, we're a very, very long way away. We've got British nationals, an embassy, but also there's quite a significant number of British nationals living out there in different parts of the country. If it does erupt into full-scale civil war, how on earth do you get them out? That's what they had to think about, and they've got to think about jolly pretty damn quick.
Yeah, a very worrying situation for anyone who's out there. I still don't quite know why it warrants all this Cobra meeting. I mean, how many staff have we got out there? How many civilians have we got out there? Presumably not that many. I know Biden's jumped on. Everyone's trying to get people out. And it's very serious if you're there. But have we got a large number of people in Khartoum?
Well, we've got an embassy, haven't we? And my understanding is we're just evacuating embassy staff. That's so far what the responsibility from the UK government will be. The US have managed to get all of their people out. They've shut their embassy in Khartoum. Yeah. But the Canadians are saying, sit tight, lock your doors. And if you think it's safe to get out, get out. So the Canadians aren't doing anything.
Maybe it's a strategically important place. It's just sort of underneath Egypt, isn't it?
Yes.
So maybe it's strategically important. I don't know, but I don't know. Do you fancy a holiday? Are you planning a holiday? I mean, it's all a bit off with the planes and everything at the minute, isn't it? You never quite know what to expect.
I wouldn't mind a holiday, though, especially if it was paid for me.
I've got a week away in June.
Oh, yeah, where are you going?
Yeah, going to Spain.
Oh,
just for a week.
Nice. Well deserved, darling, well deserved.
Taking the mother-in-law. Very nice, indeed. However, what I'm not getting is we're not spending £4,000 a night, as Boris Johnson has been doing. Well, he's sort of not been doing, because he's been staying at this villa that belongs to a mate or a cousin or something, but someone who is a tycoon. His cousin who's a tycoon. £4,100 a night, but he's probably staying there for free, to be fair. But it's in the Caribbean. Quite where in the Caribbean, I don't know.
I think the pictures were the Dominican Republic. It's him out and about.
But then he's
very
wearing,
nice.
If that's him in the Dominican Republic, he's wearing suit trousers and a shirt. It's not holiday wear, that, is it?
They are shorts, though. I think they've just cut them off. They're little Adidas shorts.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I had a little look at the pictures earlier.
Oh, did you?
I wanted to know where it was. Dominican Republic. That's where they are.
Well, I've never been.
But, I mean, it's nice if you can get it, right? A friend that puts you up in a 4K a night holiday villa.
What's that in a week? 7 fours, 28,000
I mean, that's people's salaries, isn't it? Annual salary. And during a cost of living crisis, doesn't look good, does it really?
Doesn't look good, but it's his
sitting MP.
Fourth holiday in 10 months.
Let us know what you make about that. If you're watching or listening to us in Uxbridge, Boris Johnson is your MP. What do you make of this? Is he deserving of a break? Nice family photos of him in the Dominican Republic? Or does this anger you? Do you think cost of living crisis, he should be at home doing some work?
Yeah. Oh, apparently the bloke who he's staying with, or whose house it is also who helped him get an £800,000 loan. I don't understand. He's earned £5 million, apparently, since he was Prime Minister, doing talks and things. Doesn't need to borrow money and borrow houses, and he can't afford to do what he wants with that sort of money. I would.
I would too. Let us know what you think. Maybe he doesn't want to be in politics anymore, which is what our newspaper review was perhaps suggesting. Maybe it doesn't matter so much anymore what people at home think or what his constituents think.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be in politics. It's making a lot of money on the private speaking circuit. Let us know what you make. GBnews@gbnews.uk.
I do. Why bother with all the fuss of politics if you met
I'll
massive
be
amount
doing
of
the
longer
after-dinner
just giving a
speeches.
speech? Very nice. Got to say, well, it's not quite happy birthday yet. It's happy birthday in a couple of days to Wendy in Canterbury, because 13 years ago, on the 25th of April, she ran the London Marathon on what was then her 58th birthday. She wore party boppers and a sash with birthday girl on it. Total strangers wishing me happy birthday all the way round was magic. One of the best birthdays ever.
Oh.
Fabulous. What are you going to be, 71 on Tuesday? Have a fabulous birthday.
71?
Wendy.
13 years ago. Oh,
13 years ago.
Oh, that was good maths. Well done.
Thanks very much indeed.
Very good.
Actually, I bet that was great to do on your birthday because everyone would just really getting in the spirit of it. But what a thing to do at 58. You've done it before. Is that your first one?
See, I think you need to have your feet up on your birthday, Wendy, but I do applaud you. I'd be in a spa somewhere on my birthday, but I do applaud you getting out and running a marathon. And a happy St George's Day to you all.
Yes.
Hope you're having a lovely day celebrating. Do send us pictures of your flags, or maybe if you're doing a little buffet or a nice lunch, let us know.
Have you done a cake?
We've done a cake, yeah. You wearing red, white?
The trouble is we don't celebrate it properly in England, do we?
No.
Because I think we're very conscious of, you know, the other home nations and all the rest of it. I don't know what happens if you're Welsh. What happens on St David's Day? Do you do loads of stuff? But St Patrick's Day is everywhere. We all do it. Well,
I think St Patrick's Day has been commercialised a lot more, though.
Yes.
You can buy all the green stuff and go out to the pubs and the bars. It's a good excuse to drink, isn't it? What do you think, actually, St George's Day? We would have caught on to that.
you would think
English
so.
love a drink.
Yeah.
But anyway, David says, I couldn't agree more that we need to be proud of our flag.
Yeah, quite right. Quite right. There's nothing wrong with being proud to be British, is there?
No.
Or to be English, British and English.
And English.
Yeah, I mean, why should we be ashamed of that? It's almost become like a, sort of difficult thing to say. If people see a George's cross on the window, they sort of think you're a racist now. That became the thing, didn't it? Oh, you're racist, you've got the English flag out. Nonsense.
The only time you really see it with a lot of pride is the football, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the only time we see flags on cars and outside of houses and stuff, and I really like it during that time.
Yeah. Talking of football, we'll get the very latest with Aidan McGee. This is GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:24. Good morning. This is Breakfast on GB News. Good to have you with us this morning. Carol. Now, you said after work this out, Carol. She was born on St George's Day 80 years ago. So it doesn't mean it's your birthday today, though, does it, Carol? I have to find out when St George's Day was. But at least you are either just have or are about to turn 80. So congratulations to you.
Nigel says, I'll be celebrating today inside as me, my wife and our 2 sons all have COVID. Oh, sorry to hear that. I hope you all feel better soon. We're going to move into the front room, get into the cinema mood later and watch The Italian Job. Michael Caine, Noel Coward and Benny Hill. It's a classic.
What?
What?
What? Gonna blow the bloody doors off?
Yeah,
that one?
That one.
Noel Coward and Benny Hill are in it. Are they? I haven't seen it for donkey's years. Are they really?
Hang on.
Go on.
Sure he's
Google.
Hang on.
No, that's the 2003 remake.
Hang on. 1969 version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Noel Coward, Mr.
And Benny
Bridger.
Hill.
Well, I never
and Margaret
did.
Blythe.
Well, you've honestly, that's it. I'm going to rewatch that with a different eyes on this time. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
There you go.
Classic British comedy.
It is.
Very good.
Now, Aidan McKee here. Morning.
Morning to you. How you doing?
Morning.
Oh, it's my
right.
niece's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday
16 years
to your
old. Yeah,
niece.
Neve. Yeah.
Sweet 16.
Exactly. I'm going to see her later on. I'll give her some money.
around.
Yeah, I can't think of what she wants. I'll just put some money in an envelope. That'll be fun.
Happy birthday, Neve.
30 quid. Actually, no, I won't say that in case I change my mind. I'll look at my finances, see how much I can afford.
Oh, dear.
£5.60. Nothing but generous, Aidan.
No.
Let's have a look at the FA Cup, should we?
Yeah, that's right. Man City eased through yesterday against Championship side Sheffield United, 3-0 at Wembley. We said yesterday, didn't we, about how the strength of the squad would see City through at this time of year. So Arsenal are kind of banking in terms of the title race of Manchester City being loaded with these extra games, but they just breezed through. Yeah, they made 6 changes. Yeah. That's the strength of the squad, Stephen. They can make 6 changes. One of the guys who's not even a regular, Riyad Mahrez, former Leicester player, won the league with them, scored a hat-trick yesterday. Pep Guardiola said, yeah, he's always grumpy and moaning with me because I don't play him in the first team, but they've got Erling Haaland playing so well. But he just comes in seamlessly and scores 3 goals to get them through to another appearance at Wembley. Sheffield United did OK. They're going to go up via the automatic route back to the Premier League after a two-year absence. But yeah, all eyes on Wednesday now for Manchester City. They've got the Arsenal game and the players are going to be fresh because you're going to reintroduce the players who played in the last league game, or the Champions League game rather, at Bayern Munich, and they'll probably be fresh for Arsenal. So all this talk about City being loaded with extra games. When you've got a big squad to cope with it, it doesn't matter quite as much.
Should we look at the Premier League?
Well, no, first I just wanted to talk about the empty seats, actually.
All right.
The attendance yesterday was 69,000 and it holds 90, so 20,000 less than capacity. In reality, the actual numbers inside the stadium would have been less than that because they count the tickets that have been sold. There would have been a good number of people who maybe bought tickets and didn't turn up. So it probably could have been as low as 65,000. Now, it's reignited the argument over whether semi-finals should be played at Wembley. We all know why they were there, because Wembley opened in 2007. There was a massive construction bill of around about £1 billion, and obviously you have to hold events there to pay off that bill. Now, the issue is here that the semi-finals used to be held at club grounds. So, for example, if I was at Arsenal versus Manchester United in the semi-final, Aston Villa's ground in Birmingham would be a sensible place to play it because it minimised the travelling for both clubs. Yesterday, I mean, this is the 23rd time Manchester City have played at Wembley since 2011, so it's not really a novelty. And maybe the final should be reserved for Wembley. Traditionalist purists would certainly say that it should be sacred and held for that event. And it just underlines the fact that people probably get a little bit tired of playing at Wembley, but it's not good for the game to see 20,000 empty seats at our national stadium. And maybe now, with the bill coming down and most of the bill having been paid at Wembley, maybe it's the time to move them up to club grounds, which was the traditional way of doing it. Now, Wembley, especially the old Wembley, remember the Twin Towers, it was something special. And now, in the course of a season, if you go to a semi-final replay back in the day, you could even play at Wembley 3 times before winning the trophy. So some of the shine had been taken off it. So, yeah, a bit worrying there, but hopefully it will be remedied by bringing the semi-finals back to club grounds.
Yeah.
And the price as well. The prices, people having to travel down from Sheffield, Manchester, it's not cheap.
How much is it for a ticket?
I think an average ticket in there yesterday would have been probably somewhere between 50 and 70 quid. But then there's your travel cost. There's your food. I mean, it's not an easy thing for people. Drink, exactly.
0-0, Crystal Palace Everton yesterday.
Another point on the board for Roy. That's 10 points in 4 games, 37 points now they're on. That is pretty much job done. So you'd have to give plenty of credit for the job he's done, because they hadn't won a game in ages before he turned up. But their opponents yesterday, Everton, not a bad point for them on the road, but they have dropped into the bottom 3. Nottingham Forest lost at Liverpool. Martin Daubney won't be happy. 3-2 that was. So they're in the bottom 3 as well. But I've never known it to be so tight in the bottom 6 of the Premier League. I mean, there's 3 points separating Everton. 5 points if you include Forest, separating 19th, and West Ham up in 16th. They're on 31 points. They play Bournemouth today. Normally, the relegation fight is between three clubs going into 2 spaces, maybe. Southampton, they drew on Friday, showed a lot of spirit at Arsenal, as we mentioned yesterday, but they're on 24 points. So it's very, very tight. It's going to be exciting. Newcastle-Tottenham as well, decent game up at St James's Park. Both sides chasing a Champions League place. So, very interesting at the bottom of the Premier League yesterday. But as I say, when we look at the top end, we're looking at all eyes on Wednesday. It's a huge, huge game now. Paul Coyte will be in his element the following day on Thursday talking about it. I may even have a nibble on it on Friday. It's that big, it really is.
Might have a nibble on it. Oh, dear. Now, I believe Prince William has written to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and the Wrexham team to congratulate them on getting back into the Football League.
Yeah, they beat Boreham Wood yesterday 3-1, and it means that Wrexham returned to the Football League for the first time in 15 years. Now, I always remember as a kid, Wrexham were a solid lower league side. They never threatened to get into the top 2 divisions, but they used to host Wales internationals because that was the only chance the national team ever had to go to play their games in North Wales. So they're actually, Wales are going back there later in the year, in fact, for the first time in probably 30-odd years since they played a friendly there, an international match there. Ryan Reynolds said he was lost for words. Paul Rudd turned up as well. I know, exactly.
Paul Rudd
was there. Yeah, he was. He was in the clubhouse with the fans. The party went on all day. I mean, they've got well over 100 points now getting promotion because Notts County have been such strong challengers, and they won their game against Maidstone yesterday, so they did it the hard way. We can see some celebrations as well, I think. But they've, financially it means everything to them. They get £1.1 million just for being in the Football League next season. The players are going to get a bonus of £250,000 each. I mean, the average wage in the lowest division of the Football League, which Wrexham have just been promoted into. I mean, players down there would earn probably £1,000 a week. So just on their salary. For players the division below, to be fair, their wage bill is astronomical. I do think this is pretty much a League One side playing in non-league. So they've been bloated in terms of the finance, but they need to get back into the Football League. But £250,000 each, the players are going to get on top of their salaries. So nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the celebration with Rob McElhenney was there and Ryan Reynolds. He said they've never known anything quite like it, and people were comparing it with a Hollywood script.
Do you think it is the Hollywood
Yeah.
Do you think it is the Hollywood effect that's promoted them?
Oh, without question, because it's just they've just attracted media attention. I forgot Wrexham even existed. I mean, I gave some a lift to Llandudno a few years ago. That's the only time I'd ever Wrexham had invaded my consciousness in the last 15 years. But now they're properly back on the map. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, I think they'll get promoted next season. Ben Foster's playing for them in goal. I mean, he was an England goalkeeper until relatively recently. He was playing in the Premier League for Watford last year. And that was him going back to his hometown club, saved a penalty last week, which got them promoted. So it is a good story. A lot of people are saying, well, hang on a minute, lots of good stories down in the non-league. You know, why don't they get a look at them? But you can't deny when there's a Hollywood factor involved, it's going to attract media attention, isn't it?
Yeah, and when it's someone like Ryan Reynolds,
yeah,
who's just sort of...
Well, he's bought a house in the area. He's bought a house in the area, £1.5 million, a sauna and steam room and everything.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he's got a nice... He travelled... Well, if I'm waiting for my invite, but he's positioned it near the Spa convenience store as well, so he can pop in for a loaf of bread whenever he wants.
It's a win-win.
Nice way to earn a crust.
Oh, get out. You were going so...
I know.
You ruined it.
We almost got away with it.
We almost did, Aidan. Thanks very much.
Nice to see you.
Now, sticking with the theme of sport, thousands of runners are preparing to take part in the London Marathon later on this morning.
Yeah, it kicks off pretty shortly, I should think. It's the first time the event has been properly run during spring since 2019.
Well, our Lisa Hartle is live for us now on the route. Good morning to you, Lisa, and I think you're joined by a very special GB News reporter, I believe.
Yes, yep. Got Olivia here with us, and we've also joined by Brett from the NSPCC. And obviously, Olivia, usually you're doing what I'm doing, but today you're going to run the London Marathon.
Absolutely. It feels very strange not to have an earpiece in, but yeah, feeling pretty confident, I think. Looking forward to it, looking forward to it being over even more.
Is this your first marathon?
It's my second marathon. I did the Edinburgh Marathon last year, and I did quite a good time in that, and I'm trying to beat it, so I set myself a lot of pressure.
Yeah, how much training have you had to put in?
Done 600k exactly over the last 16 weeks, which feels like quite a lot. Yeah, so hopefully I'm well prepared. Feeling a bit nervous now, but fingers crossed.
And who are you raising money for?
Raising money for Macmillan. My aunt, who I'm very close to, she brought me up, was diagnosed with cancer just before Christmas. So it felt good to be doing something positive for the last few months. And yeah, I'm really proud to have raised just over £3,000. So yeah, feeling good.
And you'll be able to spot Brett along the way. Well, I think everyone's going to be able to spot Brett with the...
Buddy.
What, the Buddy?
This is Buddy, he's Buddy the speech bubble. And he's from the NSPCC. We've got a programme, a schools programme, which is the Speak Out, Stay Safe programme. And it's teaching children in an age-appropriate way all about child abuse, child neglect, how to look after themselves, how to spot signs, and if they're worried or concerned, where to go. So every pound we raise today will go straight to our programme, which is lovely.
And how difficult is it going to be to, I mean, Buddy looks brilliant, but how difficult is it going to be to run in that?
It's a challenge. I won't be going for best time, that's for sure. I've done London before, but I'm adding an hour to my time. Exactly the opposite way of Olivia.
And you say you've done London before?
I've done London before once.
And how does it, for both of you, you know, this is obviously one of the most iconic marathons in the world. How does it feel to be running it?
Feels amazing, actually, yeah. I've got loads of friends and family out supporting me, which feels so good, and it's just such a fantastic atmosphere already on the train, everyone chatting to each other. It was like rush hour London train, but suddenly everyone was really friendly, so it feels really good. Yeah,
it's an amazing environment. Like I said, I've done it before and it's brilliant. And it's a sense of community. Everyone comes together, everyone's getting behind it. So there's 48,000 runners today, which is again an incredible feat, I think, for London. So London on the map.
And they were predicting really bad rain today, weren't they? But
so far, it looks all right.
It went down from heavy rain forecast yesterday to drizzle this morning, so we're on the right trajectory.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be lovely.
If there's a little bit of a rain, that'll keep you...
keep us cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I might thank Buddy by the end of it.
Yeah, you will. Oh, well, good luck, both of you. And we've got the start line just behind us, so we'll be here when all the runners start running shortly. First of all, it's the wheelchair race begins, and then after that, gradually, bit by bit, more and more of the runners will be released, if that's the word, over the start line right behind us.
Yeah, works for me. Really good. Lisa, thanks very much indeed. And fingers crossed for Olivia.
Yes.
And Macmillan, great cause that she's raising money for. And it's 60 million quid, they reckon they're raising today in total, which is fantastic.
It is. And Sir Mo Farah, his last competitive race as well. Yeah. So best of luck to him. Great
way to bow out.
London. What a way to bow out. Best of luck to any of you who are running the London Marathon today. Perhaps you've got us in your ears. You're listening to us on the radio. If you are, best of luck to you.
Yeah.
And I hope the rain stays off. We just heard from Olivia there, it's going to be drizzle rather than heavy showers. That's one thing, isn't it?
Which is very good indeed. There's some amazing stories in the papers this morning. Lots on, of course, Dame Edna, and also the sort of civil servant scandal and all the sort of hoo-ha that's going on about that at the moment. That's from the Observer for you this morning. We've got all the details heading your way very shortly. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:41, morning to you. This is Breakfast with me and her.
Yep, him and me. There's some great stories running through today's papers. Let's have a look at some of them now, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite nice. I say great because it's sad, but it's also a celebration of Dame Edna, Barry Humphries, Les Patterson, however you want to view him. He died yesterday in Sydney, 89, complications after a fall and then an operation. Thought he was doing all right over the weekend, and this has just then been announced. So it's a bit of a shocker because we thought that, he was on the mend. But anyway, I think it's a moment of reflecting and looking back and smiling, actually, about Dame Edna, which is nice. And that picture in The Observer does it. That's just Edna for me.
Yeah, lovely. And a nice headline there, Forever Edna, it says. And there's also a story there about the Tory plan to politicise the civil service after the Raab scandal as well. That's still rolling on, isn't it?
If you fancy a holiday, well, you're not the only one, I can't blame you for that, but I bet you're not getting a deal like this. Boris Johnson's been staying at a £4,000 a night villa in the Caribbean, all courtesy of his mate. Well, apparently cousin.
Tycoon cousin, yes.
Yes, so presumably he's got that for free. But it's his 4th holiday in 10 months. He's not doing a lot of work.
Let us know if you're watching or listening to us in Uxbridge and what you make of that story. And the Mail warns that eco-warriors could cause injury or even death at the King's coronation by spooking the King's horses with rape alarms. Speculation there in the Mail, and let's hope it just stays as speculation.
Yeah, let's hope so, let's hope so. Let's talk to political consultant Emma Burnell and editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, who are both here. Morning, both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Emma, Sunday Telegraph, J.K. Rowling, trans row.
Yeah,
what's going on? I'm getting a bit bored of all of
to
this.
be honest, this is not a trans row at all.
That's, well, there you go.
They've put that bit into the headline. Basically, there was in the Times yesterday the juiciest book review that I may have ever read. It was very spicy. Basically slating this book by Jolyon Maughan, saying it's badly written, it's pompous, it's self-indulgent.
Is that her?
She didn't write. She then tweeted that this book review is very funny. They've previously fallen out over trans rights, but there's nothing to do. The book review itself was entirely, justified. Frankly, I haven't read the book, but he makes his case in the review. Now, as somebody,
is this the lawyer fella?
The lawyer fella, Jolyon Maughan,
the one who's very right on, woke activist, who doesn't mind battering a fox to death
in his kimono. Yeah, absolutely. That is what he is most famous for, and apparently he spends 8 pages of the book talking about that and being self-justificatory about it. Look, I write plays, I direct plays. I have had good reviews, I've had bad reviews. Not terrible reviews, not reviews like this, I tell you. But they are an important part of putting work into the world. The reason there's been a row about it on Twitter is that Jolyon Maughan is saying that all of this review couldn't possibly be justified, and it's only aimed at him because the Times doesn't like his politics. Now, the Times review lots of things all the time by people they disagree with politically. Sometimes they'll give it a good review, sometimes they'll give it a bad review. They do review the product. And you have to know, as somebody putting art or creation out in the world, that is part of it, and it is scary and it's horrible, but it's reasonable. And I also do theatre criticism, and I always try to make sure if I'm giving something a bad review, I say why and what they could do better next time, because that's what this is for.
You sort of get the impression anyone called Jolyon is going to think that whatever they do is marvellous.
It is one of those names.
It's incredible as well, because he keeps losing. His Good Law project, the whole aim is that you take the government to court over all kinds of different things. I don't think he's ever won a case. But again, he still thinks he's fighting the good fight.
Maybe his next case will be with the Trade Description Act.
Probably against the RSPCA.
Says it all.
Yeah. Tom, should we have a look at the Mirror? This is Just Stop Oil. So they're going to stop all traffic.
Yes, so they're going to, as from Tuesday...
across the country?
Just in London,
Good luck with that.
But they want to essentially do a series of what they call slow marches. So rather than having one big demonstration, on break people up into groups of about 1,000 people and just slowly march through London to try and bring things to a standstill. So they're not gluing themselves to things, which is progress, presumably. But at the same time, if you wanted to have a protest that was, again, designed to infuriate people and send them in the other direction, I don't want to be ad hominem about that. I actually do want to be ad hominem about this, but they talk a bit about Phoebe Plummer here, who's one of the prominent Just Stop Oil people, pointed out that a school that she went to was £45,000 a year. You had Edred Whittingham. Who? Edred Whittingham was the guy who disrupted the snooker champion. Yes. His dad works in venture capital.
They're all ridiculously posh and rich.
They are. And you do think, at a certain point, this just resembles a kind of middle-class tantrum at the expense of working-class people. And they're never going to shed this if they carry on going down this direction. But I almost feel like with these protests, people often say, well, aren't they going to send other people in the other direction? Aren't you going to just annoy the people you're trying to convince? I don't think they care about that anymore. Otherwise, they would have shifted gear.
It's awful. Stop using petrol. Get Daddy to buy you an electric vehicle, like he did for me and Jolien.
But they must
Tarquin and
Tarquin, yeah.
What was that? Indigo Rumbelow.
Indigo Rumbelow was good.
Yeah. But they must be aware that the public aren't receiving this well, because they are saying they're going to change tactic.
Well, there's actually a bit of a split.
Right.
There's a kind of People's Front of Judeans People's Front thing going on, where Extinction Rebellion, which is kind of the mothership of all these different organisations, has said they're going to be a lot more... They're the ones who said they're going to defend the marathon from other eco-activists. Whereas Just Stop Oil, which is, if anyone remembers, Roger Hallam, slightly crazy individual, who is their alleged mastermind, is much more still given to these slightly more disruptive tactics.
Right.
So we'll be seeing that.
But I suppose Extinction Rebellion's got to be a little bit more on the ball now, haven't they? Seeing as their co-founder was buying loads of pre-packaged food in Waitrose and driving it home in a diesel car.
It's funny all that, isn't it?
According to the Sun.
I mean, the thing, if they are disrupting traffic, that at least is on brand for Just Stop Oil. I have slightly more sympathy for that tactic than I do for interrupting the snooker, which I'm not sure what the journey, the theory of change, as it's called in the campaigning world, is between we will disrupt the snooker and that will end the oil industry.
Really hitting the fossil fuel industry where it hurts.
Absolutely. And
well, who knows what those balls are made out of?
I don't want to even go there, Stephen. But there are, there are times when you need to grab attention. Yeah. But the problem is, we've gone through a year or two of attention-grabbing stunts, and I think Extinction Rebellion are right to change tack, to say, we've got your attention, now we're going to move on and use that attention to do better things and to talk about, really try to talk about what needs to be done, rather than simply attention-grabbing. And when what you have is just newer groups of people constantly trying to grab attention, A, it has diminishing returns, we're paying them less attention, and B, it doesn't do the next step, which is the difficult step, the important step of really having a difficult conversation about how we shift from a world that is dependent on fossil fuels and oil from dictators and all of these terrible things to a world that is much more sustainable. Yeah. And that's the bit we need to do.
Oh, yeah, that's a conversation that needs to be had. Look, we're just about out of time. Tom, can we just quickly, because I can't resist, can we have a look at... I mean, the man who's just sort of reached the pinnacle of his political career by becoming First Minister of Scotland in the Sunday Times. First Minister in name only, it claims.
It's not been going well for him.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Now, in large part, there's a big chunk of this which is somewhat outside of his control, given the fact that there is this ongoing police investigation, which we can't really comment on, but obviously in the past week saw Colin Beattie, the SNP's treasurer for many years, being the second leading SNP official to be arrested. But at the same time, if there was anyone who was, I would think, kind of uniquely incapable to weather the storm of a serious crisis, it's probably Humza Yousaf. He is a bungler. He's, messed up every brief he's ever had. He's terrible with the media. I mean, he said this week that he didn't think that the SNP were being run as a criminal organisation. I mean, that's the sort of thing you should know, really, rather than think.
It's sort of the first question you ask. Well, no, it shouldn't be the first question you ask, but if you've just taken this SNP over, it should be the first question you ask.
This is a man who can't even handle a knee scooter, let alone run a country. So it is the sort of thing which I think it's that combination of an incredible, unforeseen, potentially for him, he seemed to be quite in the dark about what was going on, scandal, but at the same time meeting a First Minister who doesn't seem to really know what he's doing.
No, it's not looking great, is it? No. But we shall see. You never know. It's all down to the electorate whenever they get their say. Thank you both, Emma, Tom. It's been good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you really good to see you both. Thank you. Now, a smiling Prince Louis has been photographed being pushed in a wheelbarrow by his mother, the Princess of Wales, for his 5th birthday, which is today.
Yeah, he's 4th in line to the throne, believe it or not. Is he? Is that how it all works out? Anyway, so how important is he to the royal family? Well, that's a bit of a harsh question, I think. Let's talk to royal expert Michael Cole. He's clearly very important. What a lovely little boy. It seems a strange thing to ask, actually, Michael, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Happy birthday, Louis. Also, happy birthday, William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And it is also St. George's Day today. And I'm quite sure his older brother, George, lets him know plenty, you're born on my day, my St. George's Day. Yes, and you've got it absolutely right, Stephen. He's 4th in line the throne. So to be or not to be for him means that he's going to stay fourth in line to the throne for some years to come. He's obviously a lively little boy. He was the one with his hands over his ears when the RAF flypast for the Queen's Jubilee took place. Look at him there. I mean, to me, he looks pure Middleton, whereas his brother, elder brother George, looks absolutely Spencer. Nice photograph taken by his mother. She's quite clever at this. She's putting a lot of photographers out of business, I think. And there's a nice group of them together. So 5 years old, not bad. When I was 5 years old, I do remember quite clearly Prince Charles being born. Now, he's going to be crowned in less than 2 weeks. I remember that very, very vividly, my mother saying about Prince Charles being born. So what a nice family they are. Seem to be refreshingly normal, enjoying themselves. And that's precisely as it should be.
Yes, and that's exactly what struck so many people at the Jubilee celebrations last summer, is that little Louis was just such a delight, wasn't he? But he was allowed to be a little boy, and I think that so many people really enjoyed seeing him being so playful with his great-grandmother. And now we know he's going to have a special role at the coronation as well.
Yes, well, he will be there. Prince Charles, when he was only 4, he went to his mother's coronation, but only for part of it. And he will be there throughout. And I think he was going to be part of the procession because it is the king's decision. And I think it's a very wise one to slim down the royal family, to concentrate on the direct line of succession, which, of course, is the Prince of Wales, Prince William, then Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and then Louis, and they will be in the procession after the King and Queen Camilla have been crowned. So it'll be a big day for him, but I'm sure he'll perform his duties, such as they are, very well.
Well, let's hope so. Michael, as always, it's a joy to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Lovely pictures, though. And he does look like his mom.
He does. It's funny that Michael said that, because it's the first thing I thought when I saw these pictures. I went, he is all Middleton.
Yeah, nice.
Don't you think?
It's lovely.
Looks so like his mum.
Now the London Marathon starts very shortly, but thankfully you don't have to move a muscle. This is GB News.
Hello there. Very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Relatively unsettled second half of the weekend for pretty much all areas of the UK, all thanks to low pressure being sat right across the UK. That's bringing showers and longer spells of rain to various locations. The first one will start pushing its way into southern areas of England and move into southeastern areas throughout this morning, so it could provide quite a wet London Marathon if you are running here. Some sunnier spells developing elsewhere, but that will allow some showers to pop off, particularly for Wales, central northern areas of England. 1 or 2 of those could be quite sharp with the odd rumble of thunder. Further rain pushing into northeast Scotland. That will fall as a wintry mixture over the higher ground areas as we've seen cold air begin to dig in from the Arctic. So really quite cold compared to recent days, particularly around coast of Scotland, where we'll see gales developing, and it will feel quite bitter if you're exposed to that. Elsewhere, the showers will tend to ease their way off as we head throughout this evening and overnight. That will allow a few clearer intervals to develop and the temperatures to drop off ever so slightly down into low single figures. But a patchy frost is possible across some areas of Scotland and slightly further south as well. But we do have further rain pushing from Northern Ireland into Wales and southern England as we head into Monday morning. So quite a damp start to the new working week here, and that will continue to progress its way eastwards, so turning quite cloudy even for the Midlands and into the southeast for the afternoon. Some sunnier spells developing for Northern Ireland, Scotland and into northern areas of England for the afternoon, but again a stream of showers still pushing in across the north, those now falling even to sleet at lower levels and really quite cold for the time of year, about 5 degrees below average. We'll continue to see some showers as we head into Monday evening, but the ridge of high pressure wants to build its way in for Tuesday and help settle things down slightly, but those temperatures are going to remain well below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News, we're starting the conversation and having the debate that the establishment won't have.
No one will be cancelled.
Join me at 4 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing all the big topics of the weekend.
Oh, get cracking!
Always honest, always fun. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock, it's Sunday the 23rd of April. Today, the comedy world loses a real legend. Tributes pour in for Barry Humphries, who's died at the age of 89. Get out now, staff scramble to evacuate the embassy in Khartoum as fighting in Sudan escalates.
Happy birthday, Prince Louis. The Prince and Princess of Wales released a special family photo to celebrate their youngest turning 5 years old. And on your marks, get set, go. Runners set, take to the streets for 2023 London Marathon.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello and this is Breakfast on GB News.
And happy St George's Day to
Yes.
you all, if you're celebrating. And let's hope you are celebrating all that this morning. I've got to say a special hello to Jodie in London, who says, my son Jonathan and I proudly became British citizens on this day 16 years ago. The fact it was St George's Day made it even more special.
Ah, well, happy St George's Day to you, Jodie, and your son Jonathan. A special one for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And someone from my neck of the woods, Mark in Malden in Essex, says, proudly flying the flag in my back garden in Malden.
Yeah, happy St George's Day to Brett, who says, I have my morning drink every day from my proud little English mug.
Ah.
Sounds nice. Picture, please.
Yes, please, yeah. And Phil says, I have my St George's flag up right now in my garden and another one in my car.
Yeah, well, fly them with pride. Why not?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Keep your thoughts coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Mel has been in touch as well about Barry Humphries, who says, we grew up with Barry as Dame Edna. Our family would laugh so loud at the cheeky but non-offensive humour and innuendo. It's all just good fun. And it was with Dame Edna and Les Patterson, actually, that innuendo was unbelievable, but just fabulous. It's almost like cheeky seaside humour.
Yes, yes.
And that's just what we loved about it. And it's been a real loss to the world, actually,
Really
because, you know, he was a huge star, not only here, but in Australia, as you would expect, in the United States, absolutely huge. And there are very few people in comedy that transcend all those different audiences, because they all react to comedy a bit differently.
And could capture everyone's minds and hearts. Absolutely incredible. Leslie's captured it really well here. She says, loved Dame Edna and Barry. They were both just so gorgeous and will be sadly missed. Another gentle comedian who had the gift to make us all belly laugh. And it's that able to transcend. I mean, could make royalty laugh, could make you and me laugh, people all around the world. What a legacy.
If you want a little bit of a reminder, here's Parky.
My daughter Val May, who was a lovely child, Judy, you met her when she was just a little one. I brought her round to see you, bless her. She is into shoplifting in a major way. Waitrose, I said, look...
Do it at Harrods.
I said, you're bringing shame on the family. Can't it be Harrods or somewhere like
Just works, doesn't it? It's definitely touchy, isn't it? We're looking at tributes and things all morning.
I have, and Parky was one of the first people to react to Barry's death, and he said Barry was a cultured, highly intelligent and fascinating man who just happened to create in Dame Edna Everage one of the everlasting comedy characters of all time.
Oh, how wonderful.
I
mean, it really has shocked the world, hasn't it?
It has, because just, you know, on Thursday, in his humorous style, Barry put out a statement thanking everyone for their well wishes and for supporting him while he had been in hospital. And he was saying, I want more support, more well wishes. And the fact that less than, 72 hours later, people are now paying tribute, it shows that he didn't see it coming. And, for weeks he had been brushing off any concern about his condition. His family said he was quite, being his funny self right up until the end. So
these very confusing messages over the
weekend.
We
did, because on Friday someone must have given a tip at the hospital to one of the national papers saying that he was unresponsive, which forced then the hospital to come out and said, no, he's awake, everything's fine. But sadly, obviously, his spokesperson confirmed yesterday before midday that he had passed away.
There's a certain... I mean, it's weird, isn't it, with these great performers.
Yeah.
But there is, as sad as it is that we have lost Barry Humphries, Dame Edna will be immortal.
It's that celebration of life and that celebration of humour. Like now, even though he's no longer with us, you can go on YouTube and if you're in the mood to laugh, you can find one of his famous clips. And that's the thing, his legacy will always be there. And I think what makes him stand out as a comedian is that he had that power to poke fun at authority and celebrities and get away with it. And that is something that we are losing as a society. So I think that's why the comedy world, especially names like Matt Lucas, Rob Brydon, Jimmy Carr, they're speaking about it because they know how hard it is to be a comedian these days. So to have someone who led the way, it's very sad when that light goes out in the comedy world.
That's something that strikes you, isn't it? There's just the respect from fellow comedians who all admired Barry Humphries.
And at 89, he was up for still performing. You know, later on this year,
tour, right?
He was going to be in tour in Australia. And so I don't think he had any plans of quitting. And to be honest, it's quite inspirational that to get someone who's quite older who still wants to continue doing what they love the most.
Yeah. Keep going till they drop.
Oh,
basically.
all the way. That's the best way to go.
Well, yeah.
Best way to go.
Stephanie, We've seen you all morning. It's been,
I know.
It's been great to have you on all morning. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Oh, dear. Well, it's nice to reflect. It's nice to smile, actually.
It is,
about
yeah.
everything that he gave us, or she gave us, whichever way you want to look at it. Now, coming up after breakfast today, Camilla Tominey's here, of course. She joins us right now from Westminster. Morning, Camilla. Heck, what a week it's been.
What a week it's been indeed, guys. Goodness me. So obviously we're going to be reflecting the Dominic Raab resignation. We're going to be speaking to his successor as Deputy Prime Minister because we've got Oliver Dowden coming on the show. He's going to be discussing perhaps some of the claims in the newspapers today about civil service partiality, whether it even exists. It's been interesting, hasn't it, to see Dominic Raab, OK, resign because he said he was going to if there was a finding against him on bullying. But he hasn't gone quietly, and I think he's raising some serious questions now about the way that the civil service operates with ministers. He's calling for an inquiry into the leaking that has been going on to the press for many months now, calls that period in which he was under investigation as a witch hunt. He's spoken to the Mail on Sunday about the effect it's had on his family. So I think that's a story that will continue to run. We'll also be speaking about that to Jonathan Ashworth, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, who'll be coming on, perhaps seeing it from a different point of view, because Labour, of course, have been quite happy to capitalise on yet another senior Tory scalp being taken. And interestingly as well, guys, we're going to be speaking to Dave Penman, who's at the helm of the union that represents civil servants, the FDA. Now, this is the union that Raab has accused in his interview with GBNews. He spoke to Olivia Utley, didn't he, on Friday. He said that they were all conspiring together and that this union has put some of these civil servants up to it. So I'll be asking Dave Penman whether that's correct.
Oh, well, that's good. That will be very interesting to see what sort of reaction you get to all of that. I'm interested as well, you're going to be talking to David Davis, because he's someone who, I mean, he used to be Raab's boss, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So David Davis describes Dominic Raab as his protégé. They're very close in politics. Indeed, David Davis has written a piece today for the Mail on Sunday defending Raab. Raab, of course, replaced him as Brexit Secretary until he had to resign over the Chequers deal too, and the idea that Theresa May took Brexit in the wrong direction. They're very close. And I think what David Davis is going to say, and perhaps it also speaks to an opinion piece that's in the paper by Francis Maud, who's a former Tory party chairman, suggesting that perhaps the way that it's working between ministers and civil service has kind of had its day, and this idea that perhaps we should be adopting a more American or Australian model and having ministers have advisers that are perhaps more closely politically aligned to them. I'll ask him about that. I also want to ask him how he thinks Rishi Sunak is doing, because obviously he's been a very vocal Boris Johnson critic and a very vocal Rishi Sunak supporter, but yet with the party still 15 to 20 points behind in the polls. I want to know from David Davis whether he's confident he's backed the right horse.
Oh, you know what the answer to that will be. Come on, you know what the answer to that will be. You should say to you, happy St George's Day, Camilla.
At least you're wearing red, Camilla. It's better than me.
Thank you for that. Do you know what? I'm wearing red in honour of St George's Day, which is also an important day in my life because it's my late mother's birthday. She was so proud to be born on St George's Day, also Shakespeare's birthday. I think you'll find, guys, isn't that right?
Yes, and his death day.
Indeed so.
Just to you know, put a spin on it.
Cheery.
I think it's quite
But
interesting.
we're celebrating it on GBNews.
Yes,
quite
we
right
certainly
too.
are.
No,
we
it doesn't
certainly
look
are.
like it is from what we're dressed in this morning.
Yeah, well,
Camilla,
you're doing us proud, Camilla.
yeah, we'll see you a little bit later on. Thanks very much indeed. Loads of you getting in touch on St George's Day. And I wish I'd got something that was more apt to wear, but there you go. Peter went to see Dame Edna 3 times in London, sat in the front row. After that, booked seats at the back due to being sprayed by Sir Les Patterson, one of the funniest men I've ever seen. Oh, and on those emergency warnings, actually, there you go. John, this is to clarify a few things. John says, I don't mind the phone alarm as long as it tells you what it's warning you about. Good news for you, John, it will, the text will tell you what the issue is. And so today it will say, this is just a test of the system.
Yeah, Ty and Jill have made the same sort of point, which is that the alert can be sent locally for a missing child or a child that's been lost or taken. What on earth is wrong with that? And Jill goes a little bit further, saying, I think the emergency alarm should be used if someone, a child, teenager or a vulnerable adult goes missing.
Yeah, Rick says it'd be very useful if you live in a block of flats and there's a fire. You might not be able to get round to every single flat and warn the residents. Meanwhile, Graham says, I definitely do not believe the government. My phone is going in the microwave.
Well, it's certainly dividing opinion. Keep those views, opinions, memories of Dame Edna, anything you like. Keep sending them in. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Yeah. Trainers at the ready. On your marks, get set and go as we head to the 43rd London Marathon. This is Breakfast on GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News. It's 9:15. Loads of you getting in touch. It is St George's Day, as we keep saying. It's worth pointing out.
Yes.
John, morning, John. I was born on St George's Day in 1948, and I've always been proud to be English. I'm also an RAF veteran who served from the age of 15 as a boy entrant. But I have, though, lived in Wales for nearly 40 years and married a beautiful Welsh lady called Carol.
Oh, that's really sweet. Oh. Well, happy St George's Day to you, John. Hope you're having a lovely day, whatever you're up to. Steve says, I have my Cross of St George flying proudly outside my house in Northamptonshire. As a veteran, another veteran here, my country is very dear to me. I'm sure lots of veterans are feeling that way today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I mean, in that sense, you serve the, Her Majesty's United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, or His Majesty's now. But there's still something special about England, if you're English, or whichever home nation you're from. And I don't think there's nothing wrong in celebrating that, is there?
No. England's green and pleasant lands.
Yes.
Yes.
On the late, great Barry Humphries, Richard says you two are probably too young to have seen The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie and...
You're right.
Barry Mackenzie holds his own, but they're hilarious. Filth.
Oh, really?
Well, probably. I would imagine so. If that's anything to go by.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll try and see if I can check those out, see if they're downloadable from anywhere.
Maybe not on your work laptop.
I haven't got a work laptop, so it's all right.
There you go.
That's all right. It's my own. I watch what I like on this.
Watch what you like. Rob says, when I first saw Barry as Dame Edna, I was a young lad of about 10 and I thought it was a woman for years. Now, that is an appropriate drag act, says Rob.
Well, yeah.
I thought the same, and I remember being baffled that, I think it was my mum, explained to me that it was Barry Humphries in drag. Didn't realise.
It's just the fact, and it's not that Barry made a convincing woman, let's be honest, but it's just the fact that it never seemed to falter, did it?
That's what it was.
She never went out of character like that, and even did Desert Island Discs as Dame Edna, and stayed in character, which I just think is just remarkable.
Well, as you said earlier, she took on a life of her own, didn't she?
I would imagine if she'd ever come in here, she would have been Edna as she walked in, and she'd have been Edna as she walked out.
Yeah.
Whether we'd ever have seen Barry, I don't know. But that, I think, is lovely.
Oh, it is absolutely incredible. And I love the way that the papers have covered it today. Goodnight possums on many of the front pages. It's just such a lovely headline, such a lovely tribute. So thank you for sending in your memories. Do keep them coming. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Now, thousands of runners, about 45,000 actually, are preparing to take part in the marathon later this morning.
Yes, it will be the first time the event is run during spring since 2019. Well, Lisa Hartle is live now for us on the route. Good morning to you, Lisa. How's it looking there?
Hello. Well, the atmosphere is so lovely. Everyone's so happy and there's music. And on the train on the way in, there was runners on there as well. They were all buzzing as well. I don't know, obviously they're excited because this is one of the most iconic marathons to run in the world. But also I think it's because they've got all that, what's it called? What's the happy hormone that when you exercise and you're a fit, healthy person that you have?
Adrenaline
and endorphins, that's it. Yeah, adrenaline. They were like all buzzing for this, and there's lots of people around me now that have just come just because they want to watch, because the start line's just behind me. So we had the first wave just set off just moments ago, all the runners are walking by, getting ready to go to their places. So I spoke to a runner earlier, Emily. I think we have her interview here to just have a look at.
Started my longer runs December-ish time, but I run anyway because I run for Maidstone and Medway Athletics Club, so always into cross country, longer distance, so just building on that really. Yeah, my dad's here with me now, my mum and nana are coming up later, my friend lives in Greenwich, so she's somewhere with her boyfriend cheering me on later, so yeah, it's really good. Like the organisation is mad, like it's just so easy to get here. It's exciting. Yeah, great to be here. I'm running for Beat. They're an eating disorder charity. I've struggled from an eating disorder for about 5 years, and they've helped me through my journey. And they've been really supportive. They've support around other mental health things. They're just a really great charity that gives so much. So, yeah, it'd be good. Yeah, excited. Yeah, first one. So yeah, who knows.
Well, she was very chilled there and very Sorry, I was just
Yes,
going to say
she was
she's so
very-
chilled. She's going to run 26.2 miles, and she was very relaxed with it all. So she's obviously
Yes,
going to enjoy the whole experience, and a lot more relaxed than I would be if I was doing it.
Yeah, same with me, Lisa. And you also spoke to our lovely Olivia Utley earlier, who was on the start line with you. How is she feeling?
Yeah, again, very, very happy, very relaxed. I think she said this is her second marathon, but this is the first time she's done the London Marathon. She did Edinburgh before, but yeah, again, very, very relaxed with it all. She had to race to get to me today, so that was her warm-up. But yeah, obviously raising money for charity. This event raises £60 million for charity. So, and everyone's got their own personal story and reason as to why they've chosen that particular charity. So it means a lot to the people taking part.
Lovely, Lisa. Thank you very much indeed. Don't get swept away with the runners, will you? End up doing it by accident. That'd be a challenge.
I try not to. Hope it stays dry as well, because they're expecting really bad rain. So.
Well, fingers crossed you
Hopefully-
stay dry.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't stop people getting out and supporting those crowds. We've been saying Happy St George's Day a lot. I've got an interesting one from Peter Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Peter, I don't know, he's in Newcastle. He says, "Hi, guys. England is not pronounced England. It's pronounced England.
England.
Why do people say England? I have no idea. It's all in the spelling. People have forgotten the heritage. England.
England.
We don't say England, do we?
No.
I've never known anyone say England.
No, it's the first time I've heard of it.
England.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I don't think it's going to catch on quite.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe historically, correct, maybe England. It's from the Angles, isn't it?
Yeah.
England. But I think perhaps it's been lost in the swathes of time, that one, Peter.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
thanks for
the
pointing it out.
Maybe for the best.
David says, my local CV church at Rock, Worcestershire, does not fly the flag of St George on the 23rd. Why not? Are they ashamed of this flag and the English people? But they have no problem flying the Union Jack on fundraising days or the Ukraine flag on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fair point, actually. We shouldn't be embarrassed by it. And everywhere flies a Ukrainian flag. You see it everywhere, don't you?
Everywhere now.
Nothing wrong with that. But
I do think you only really see the St George's flag flown with pride near the football and around the football. That's the only time, really, I think you see it widespread across the country. Sometimes a little bit for St George's Day. You might see it in pubs. Some pubs have a lovely St George's Day display. Lots of you have been messaging in today saying you've got little flags up in your windows or on your cars. So do send in those pictures. Really good to see them.
yeah, oh dear. Dear, some unhappy people. Sue Brown is very unhappy with us this morning.
Oh, dear, why?
She says, why aren't you wearing a rose today? I bet the Welsh, Irish and Scots wear them on their National Saints' Days. I don't know that they do on the telly, to be fair.
Yeah.
But no, she says, we'd rather wear baby blue with our extensions. Extensions? How dare you?
Sue.
Or blue and white Scottish ties. This isn't a Scottish tie. Sue Brown. No, Sue, I think you're reading a bit too much into it.
Yeah,
Admittedly,
sorry, Sue.
if I had a red tie, I would have worn it. And if I had a white shirt that was clean, I would have worn that as well.
And
but
I
there you
did
go.
consider a red dress, Sue, and I considered it too late. I was in the taxi on the way here. I was already in this dress, which had been ironed. I'm sorry. I do feel bad. I should have been in red or white today. I have said it to Stephen, but I can't change now,
You
unfortunately.
can't change now. I could have coloured it in with a biro.
I know. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Nice message from Peter, who's in Brierley Hill in the West Midlands, about Barry Humphreys and actually people like Paul O'Grady as well. He says, all I can say is that God must be short of some laughs, for he keeps taking the best comedians. That's quite a nice way of looking at it.
Oh, Pete, that's a really lovely sentiment, isn't it? Yeah, and they'll be up there
There you go.
together, we hope, having a real laugh.
And a quick one, because I've just seen from Margaret Jackson, who is 79 today. Happy birthday, Margaret.
Happy birthday.
Always been proud of my heritage. She was in the Navy. She's been partying since Thursday. Roll on my 80th and I'll raise a glass to St George and Shakespeare. And, of course, to you. Lots of love to you, Margaret. Have a great day.
Yeah, happy birthday, Margaret. That's it from us. Up next is the Camilla Tominey Show.
Good morning and happy St George's Day to you all. I'm in celebratory red for the Camilla Tominey show today, and it's been a very controversial week in British politics, following, of course, the resignation of Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab. We've got a packed show for you to discuss all of that. I'm going to be speaking to Dominic Raab's former boss, David Davis, and I'll also be speaking to the new Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden. I'm also going to be joined by Labour's Jonathan Ashworth. He's the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary. And later in the show, I'm going to be speaking to Dave Penman, the boss of the FDA union, who represents many of the civil servants who have made these complaints about Dominic Raab. There is a great deal going on in the show today. Do not even think of going anywhere. We'll be back soon.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war.